In biological terms, humans are wired for group behavior. From hunter-gatherer tribes to modern office cubicles, social cohesion has always been a survival tool. But evolution also birthed outliers, those who walked alone, observed more than they spoke, and thought deeper than they reacted. These are the sigmas. They don't compete for alpha dominance or beta acceptance. They exit the hierarchy altogether, and that exit isn't passive. It's powerful, because it reveals a truth many refuse to face. Much of what we call success is actually social theater. Sigma males tear down that stage by refusing to act. In psychological studies, individuals who exhibit high self-determination, those who live by internal values rather than external rewards, tend to unsettle hierarchical structures. Why? Because they're proof that fulfillment doesn't require applause. In corporate settings, the Sigma's refusal to play politics makes him appear threatening to those whose careers thrive on manipulation. In social settings, his calm demeanor is misread as arrogance by people addicted to validation. His stillness forces others to confront their own noise. And so, he is labeled, misunderstood, targeted, but not with open attacks, with subtler weapons, whispers, isolation, reputational sabotage. The world doesn't know what to do with a man who doesn't need it, so it tries to break him. But here's the catch, it can't. Because the Sigma doesn't draw strength from approval, he draws it from purpose. And when your compass is internal, no storm can reroute you. That's the essence of the Sigma male, quiet, unshaken, and untraceable. Not because he's hiding, but because he's free. And in a controlled world, nothing is more dangerous than a free man. Point 1. He can't be guilt-tripped. People often use guilt as a subtle form of manipulation to control others, especially those who have begun to break away from social norms or redefine their priorities. Phrases like, "Why don't you come out anymore?" or "You've changed" may seem harmless, even caring on the surface. But they're frequently rooted in an unspoken expectation. These questions are emotional hooks meant to reel someone back into old patterns of behavior. But guilt only has power over those who are still seeking validation, approval, or belonging. That's where the Sigma male stands apart. He isn't motivated by the need to be liked or accepted. His operating system runs on autonomy and internal truth. While most people crave connection to the point of self-abandonment, the Sigma male chooses integrity over inclusion. He values authenticity over appeasement and boundaries over blind bonding. When he withdraws, it's not out of malice, it's an act of preservation. He knows that time and energy are finite resources, and he's intentional with both. He doesn't owe anyone an explanation for his absence because his identity is not tied to anyone's expectations. And that unsettles people. Psychologically, this dynamic is tied to what social scientists call our tendency to interpret interactions based on relationship dynamics. When a Sigma male shifts or distances himself, others feel a loss of control in that dynamic, and they often react by trying to reassert emotional influence through guilt. But their efforts rarely succeed because the Sigma is already free from the psychological need to be managed by groupthink. That freedom is what gets him labeled as cold or heartless. It's not that he lacks emotion, it's that he doesn't let emotion dictate his decisions. In fact, this kind of emotional sovereignty is something many secretly envy. They may call him distant, but what they really feel is discomfort in the presence of someone who has mastered self-alignment, someone who cannot be guilt-tripped, manipulated, or emotionally coerced. And while society praises conformity masked as connection, the Sigma lives by a different code, one that protects his peace over popularity. He knows who he is. And ironically, it's that unwavering clarity that often draws people in, even as they pretend to push him away. Point 2. He sees through social masks. People often use guilt as a subtle weapon to control others, especially those who have started setting boundaries and walking a different path. You'll hear it in phrases like, "Why don't you come out anymore?" or "You've changed." On the surface, these words may seem like expressions of concern, but they often carry a manipulative undertone, a psychological push to make you feel responsible for someone else's discomfort. This tactic works best on those who are approval seekers, who crave validation, and who are deeply affected by the fear of disappointing others. But the Sigma male isn't built that way. He doesn't measure his worth by how many people he pleases. He's not interested in playing emotional chess with those who can't handle his detachment. He values truth over comfort, clarity over closeness, and purpose over people-pleasing. If he's absent, it's not an oversight, it's intentional. He doesn't explain himself because he doesn't owe anyone a justification for protecting his energy. That silence is his boundary. It's a declaration that he's not available for games or guilt trips. And because society is so conditioned to demand constant availability and emotional conformity, people find his self-containment threatening. They label him cold, arrogant, or heartless. But what they're really feeling is envy. Envy for the freedom he lives with, for the clarity he operates from. According to psychological studies, individuals who set firm boundaries tend to have higher self-esteem and better mental health. The Sigma doesn't isolate out of bitterness. He withdraws to preserve focus, peace, and authenticity. While others are entangled in emotional obligations, he moves through life with purpose and autonomy. This doesn't mean he lacks empathy or connection. It means he refuses to be emotionally manipulated into becoming someone he's not. In a world that thrives on distraction and demands emotional availability, the Sigma's discipline appears radical. But it's not cruelty, it's clarity. His distance isn't rejection, it's redirection. He's not avoiding people, he's choosing himself. And ironically, the more he does this, the more others are drawn to him. Not because he's chasing attention, but because he embodies what so many lack: freedom from guilt, freedom from approval, and the power to live by one's own design. Point 3. He disrupts group hierarchies. Every group, whether it's a corporate team, a school clique, a military unit, or a group of friends at a bar, naturally develops a hierarchy, a leader, followers, and the complex social glue that keeps the pecking order intact. People jostle for position through charm, dominance, loyalty, or influence, but then someone different shows up, the Sigma male. He doesn't play the game, not because he can't, but because he genuinely isn't interested. He doesn't want the crown, the applause, or the authority. That's precisely what makes him so disruptive. Unlike the alpha who commands the spotlight, or the beta who supports the alpha to gain approval, the Sigma exists outside this system. His power lies in his independence, and ironically, that makes others feel unsettled. You see, the human brain is wired to respond to social hierarchies. Studies in evolutionary psychology show that our ancestors survived better in structured tribes, so our modern minds still seek roles and status for a sense of security. When someone like the Sigma doesn't engage in this deeply embedded social contract, it exposes a truth that many aren't ready to face, that much of their confidence is rooted in how others see them. The Sigma doesn't need applause to validate his worth. And in doing so, he inadvertently becomes a mirror. That mirror reflects others' dependency on approval, hierarchy, and status, not by criticizing them, but simply by existing. And that's what creates tension. He doesn't outshine others by being louder or more dominant. He outshines them by being free from the need to impress, to lead, to be liked. That kind of neutrality is threatening in a world addicted to recognition. It's not aggression, it's detachment. And that detachment radiates an authenticity so rare that it challenges the very foundation of most social groups. The Sigma walks into the room and without lifting a finger, without playing anyone's game, he unsettles the entire order, not because he wants to win, but because he doesn't care if there's a game at all. Point 4. Women can't box him in. He's not the nice guy who panders, constantly seeking approval or sacrificing his identity to make others comfortable. He's not the dominant alpha who needs to be in control of every room, posturing to prove power. Instead, he walks a quieter, more powerful path, the Sigma male, the man who doesn't beg for attention and doesn't demand submission. He's the mystery she can't decode, the paradox who's fully present yet emotionally elusive. What makes him so compelling isn't loud behavior or visible dominance. It's his aura of controlled independence. He's stable in his values, but free in his spirit. Unpredictable, not because he's erratic, but because he can't be manipulated or mapped like everyone else. That unpredictability creates tension, an emotional gravity few can resist. Psychology backs this up. Research in interpersonal attraction shows that uncertainty often increases fascination. When something or someone isn't easily defined, the human brain becomes obsessed with solving the puzzle. The Sigma male embodies this. He's not aloof to appear cool. He's selective because his time, energy, and peace are sacred. Some love that about him, drawn to his quiet confidence and self-mastery. Others feel unsettled, even threatened by the fact that he doesn't need validation or approval. But whether they admire him or misunderstand him, no one forgets him. Because while most men orbit around attention, reacting to what the world expects, the Sigma orbits around purpose. Purpose gives him direction, not applause. He's internally motivated, building his life around goals, visions, and values, not people's opinions. That's what makes him rare in a society addicted to image. He knows who he is and doesn't ask for permission to be that man. He's the one she remembers years later, not because he played games or said the perfect words, but because he was unlike anyone else. When he enters a room, it's not noise that announces him, it's presence, a grounded, unshakable sense of self. In a world full of followers and controllers, he's something different, something real, something unforgettable. And that's why he never chases attention, because he knows attention always finds him. Point 5, he refuses to argue emotionally. People bait him, test him, try to spark a reaction, but he won't play their game. The Sigma male moves through social conflict like a chess grandmaster, measured, calm, and always 3 steps ahead. When others raise their voices, hoping to provoke him, his response is surgical. No raised voice, no emotional escalation, no ego-driven comeback. Just pure logic or deliberate silence. And that silence, it's not weakness, it's power. Research in psychology confirms that silence during conflict often shifts control to the quiet party, forcing the aggressor into a state of confusion or self-reflection. Emotionally reactive people can't stand this. They thrive on drama and feed off the chaos of emotional entanglements. When they don't get the reaction they crave, when their outburst meets a wall of calm, they unravel. Why? Because they expect others to respond the way would. But the Sigma doesn't bend to social expectations. He's not wired to seek validation through conflict or dominance. Instead, he finds strength in mental clarity and inner discipline. His presence is disarming not because he's loud, but because he's unreadable. Neurologically speaking, people are hardwired to seek emotional feedback in social situations. When that feedback is absent, when the Sigma stares back with stillness, it triggers discomfort in those who lack emotional control. They interpret his neutrality as superiority or judgment, and it exposes their own insecurity. Meanwhile, the Sigma male isn't trying to win the interaction. He's simply conserving energy, choosing not to invest in petty battles. It's stoicism in action, a trait deeply rooted in ancient philosophy, where the wise were taught to master their emotions rather than be mastered by them. This kind of discipline isn't common in a world where everyone wants to be heard first, react fastest, and talk loudest. The Sigma flips the script. He listens more than he speaks. He thinks before he moves. And when he does speak, his words cut through noise like a scalpel, precise, purposeful, and impossible to ignore. This is what makes him dangerous to the emotionally chaotic. Not his anger, but his unshakable calm. He's not trying to outshine anyone. He's just not dimming his light to match theirs. Point 6. He's immune to trends. The Sigma doesn't flinch, not because he's arrogant or indifferent, but because his mindset is forged in solitude and self-mastery. In a world obsessed with trends, outrage, and constant validation, the Sigma male stands as a countercurrent. New challenge, new movement, viral opinion. While most rush to react, riposte, or rant, the Sigma remains still, not out of fear, but because his worth isn't measured by his participation in noise. He's not against the world. He's just unaffected by its theatrics. This psychological detachment comes from a place of deep introspection and autonomy. Studies in personality psychology link such traits to high levels of introverted intuition and emotional regulation, skills often honed through intentional solitude and internal focus. The Sigma's silence isn't passive, it's deliberate. He doesn't speak to be seen, he speaks when it matters. Unlike those driven by performative validation, the Sigma only contributes when his words carry weight. And because of that rarity, people listen when he does. His influence doesn't come from volume, but from value. In fact, research shows that those who speak less but with precision are perceived as more competent and intelligent, a phenomenon called the reservoir effect. When everyone else is shouting, trying to go viral, his silence becomes a paradox. It feels like thunder. It commands attention not through aggression, but by contrast. This paradox mirrors ancient Stoic philosophy, which values mastery over one's emotions and reactions. Like Marcus Aurelius, who ruled without seeking applause, the Sigma moves through life with an internal compass, not a need for approval. Entertainment may change, Trends may fade, but the sigma remains anchored. And in today's chaotic digital battlefield of opinions and outrage, that calm, focused energy is rare and powerful. His silence can provoke more thought than 1,000 viral rants. Because while the world shouts to be noticed, the sigma simply acts, and in doing so he leaves a mark that's not just louder, but lasting. Point 7, he walks away fully. When he's done, he's done. No guilt, no games, no closure tours. That's the way of the sigma male, and it unnerves people more than they care to admit. In a society where ghosting is normalized but closure is still expected, the sigma male breaks the mold with unapologetic finality. Most people leave cracks in the door, hoping for reconciliation, attention, or some emotional leverage. But the sigma male, he closes the door, locks it, and tosses away the key without announcing the departure, not out of cruelty, but because he values peace over prolonged drama. Neuroscience backs this up. Studies on emotional regulation have shown that people who are more introspective and less socially dependent, traits often found in sigma personalities, tend to recover faster from emotional turmoil when they cut ties decisively. The sigma's detachment isn't emotional coldness, it's emotional efficiency. He doesn't burn bridges out of anger, he deletes the map because he has no intention of walking that route again. This rattles people because it denies them something they're used to. Emotional negotiation. They can't plead, manipulate, or linger in a loop of confusion. The sigma leaves, and that silence becomes louder than any argument. This level of self-respect and boundary setting often gets misunderstood as arrogance or heartlessness. In reality, it's rooted in clarity. When something or someone no longer aligns with his values, vision, or energy, he exits, not to punish, but to protect. It's not about winning. It's about preserving his path. Society is conditioned to expect loops of dysfunction, breadcrumbing, and emotional gray zones. But the sigma rewrites the script. His detachment is not an act of revenge, it's an act of evolution. And that's what shakes people to their core. Because deep down, many wish they had the strength to do the same, to walk away without making a scene, to disappear without guilt, to say nothing and still mean everything. Point 8, he creates, not competes. He doesn't measure success by beating others. He measures it by outgrowing himself. In a world obsessed with competition, comparison, and public validation, the sigma male walks a different path. While others gauge their worth by outperforming peers, flashing their lifestyles on social media, or climbing the ladder faster than the next man, the sigma male is locked into a more personal, internal mission, becoming better than who he was yesterday. This mindset is rooted in something deeper than ego, it's self-mastery. Psychologists describe this as intrinsic motivation, the drive that comes from within rather than from external rewards. Sigma males embody this. They don't care about applause, timelines, or trending metrics of success. While others broadcast their every move, chasing likes and recognition, the sigma builds in silence. He's not interested in announcing every step of his progress, because he knows true strength doesn't need to speak. It simply becomes undeniable over time. When he arrives, when his plans finally bloom into visible success, it catches people off guard. Because he wasn't performing for an audience, he was preparing for a purpose. This element of quiet growth often baffles those used to loud ambition. Think of bamboo, which spends years growing underground before it suddenly shoots up feet within weeks. That's the sigma's way, laying foundations others can't see until it's too late to catch up. Studies on high-performance individuals reveal that delayed gratification and low need for social approval are two critical traits of people who build enduring legacies. And that's exactly what the sigma male is after. Not a flashy sprint, but a lifelong marathon rooted in discipline, clarity, and inner peace. His success isn't an explosion, it's an unveiling. And by the time the world notices, he's already miles ahead, not because he rushed, but because he refused to compete with noise and chose instead to align with his own growth. That's not just smart, it's rare, it's powerful, and it's very sigma. They tried to shame him, provoke him, and isolate him, thinking they'd break him. But while the noise surrounded others, he found power in the silence. In the quiet, he built discipline. In the shadows, he sharpened his mind, and while the crowd scrambled for validation, he chased something rarer, truth. The sigma male is not a product of popularity, he's forged through solitude. Unlike alpha types who thrive on leadership and control, or betas who seek group belonging, Sigmas stand apart. Psychological studies suggest that men with high introversion and self-direction often exhibit Sigma traits, thriving independently, resisting peer pressure, and focusing on internal growth. His strength isn't about overpowering others, but about staying aligned with his purpose. He doesn't seek fame, but his presence changes the room. His legacy isn't loud, but it lasts. In a world desperate for conformity, the Sigma chooses mastery over mimicry. Stay curious, stay Sigma. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't need to. The very energy that surrounds him speaks louder than words ever could. When a Sigma male walks into a room, there's a sudden shift, like the atmosphere tightens, like everyone becomes subtly aware of his presence. He isn't seeking attention, dominance, or approval. In fact, he avoids it. But paradoxically, this only draws more eyes to him. His silence isn't empty, it carries a weight most can't understand. It's the kind of silence that makes people wonder what he's thinking, what he knows, and why they feel slightly unsettled in his presence. This isn't your typical charisma, the charming, talkative energy that pulls people in. This is something colder, deeper, and more instinctive. Psychology refers to it as silent authority, a powerful phenomenon where someone exerts influence without exertion, simply through their aura, body language, and emotional detachment. Sigma males embody this naturally. They observe more than they speak. They think before they act. And their emotional independence makes them immune to the chaos of social drama. People don't know how to categorize them. They're not alphas trying to lead, not betas trying to please. They're outsiders by choice, strategists by nature, and calm in a way that feels almost alien. It's no surprise that this unnerves others. Studies on nonverbal dominance and perceived threat suggest that people can feel uncomfortable when they encounter someone whose presence contradicts social norms, especially someone who doesn't try to fit in or compete. And yet, that same discomfort is laced with fascination. Some admire his mystery, some envy his control, others despise him, though they can't articulate why. The Sigma doesn't chase respect. He doesn't need to. His self-reliance and psychological depth make him impossible to ignore. So today we journey into his world, to uncover the 8 spine-chilling behaviors that define him, disturb others, and remind us that sometimes the loudest power is the quietest man in the room. Welcome to Brain Boosters, where we decode the psychology of the quiet disruptor. Let's begin. Number 1, he cuts emotion like a blade. Most men react, Sigmas calculate. That's the difference between a wildfire and a controlled burn. One rages out of control, the other is strategic, precise, and necessary. When provoked, the Sigma male doesn't flare up in rage or spiral into emotional theatrics. He studies, he processes. His mind shifts into analytical mode, not fight or flight, because for the Sigma, anger is inefficient. It clouds judgment and wastes energy. Panic, even worse. It's messy, unpredictable, and often exploited by others. Emotion to the Sigma is a vulnerability, an exposed wire that people can tamper with. So he learns early to contain it, not suppress it blindly, but manage it with razor-sharp control. Like a dam holding back a flood, his calm demeanor keeps him watertight, sealed against manipulation and chaos. And this, ironically, makes him dangerous in the eyes of those who thrive on emotional reactions. Manipulators and drama addicts feed on attention, on the tug-of-war of emotional escalation. They're used to pushback, loud objections, drawn-out arguments. But the Sigma gives them none of it. He denies them the battle. He doesn't yell, he doesn't plead, he doesn't even argue. Instead, he might disappear without warning, ghosting toxicity without guilt. Or worse, for those seeking validation, he ends the relationship or conflict with one calm, surgical decision. No drawn-out goodbyes, no need for closure, just a clean break, like cutting a cord that no longer serves him. This is where the real impact happens. Because while most people are accustomed to conflict leaving behind noise, a Sigma's silence echoes louder. His refusal to engage, to justify, to return, leaves scars. Not from violence or cruelty, but from the quiet void he creates. He doesn't seek revenge or make a scene. He simply moves on. And that can be more psychologically jarring than any shouting match. Studies in psychology have shown that emotional detachment, especially when unexpected, can be more unsettling than confrontation. It leaves the other party with unanswered questions, forced into self-reflection they didn't ask for. This is the Sigma's power, not in domination, but in unshakable control. While the world spins in drama and emotional chaos, the Sigma remains still, deliberate, and almost ghost-like in his movement. That makes him hard to manipulate, hard to decode, and even harder to forget, and that's precisely why his presence and absence leave a lasting mark. Number 2, he's immune to status games. While others measure their value in titles, followers, and fame, the Sigma male quietly walks away from it all, not out of arrogance, but out of alignment with deeper truths. In a world obsessed with recognition, he is a rare breed who finds no need to broadcast his worth. He could be wealthy beyond imagination, powerful beyond comprehension, yet he moves in silence. You won't find him chasing applause or scrambling for likes because his self-worth isn't constructed from external validation. It's built in silence, forged in the fire of solitude, and tested through trials of self-reliance. This is what makes him dangerous, because the very things that society uses to control, tempt, or manipulate others simply don't work on him. You can't lure a man with status when he's already content in isolation. You can't intimidate a man who's not afraid to lose you. Sigma males function outside the traditional hierarchy, not below it or above it, but completely off the grid. They are lone wolves who operate with surgical precision, not because they have something to prove, but because they have nothing to lose. Psychologically, this level of detachment is unsettling to those who are addicted to attention and approval. The Sigma's independence reflects a form of quiet rebellion, a rejection of superficial metrics in favor of internal mastery. Research in behavioral psychology even supports this trait. Studies show that those with high levels of intrinsic motivation tend to be more creative, resilient, and less susceptible to peer pressure. Sigma males embody that principle in full. They aren't antisocial, they're selectively social. They don't hate authority, they just don't need it, and they don't fear being alone, because they've turned solitude into a sanctuary. In the modern era, where digital noise drowns out authenticity, the Sigma male's refusal to play the popularity game is both radical and refreshing. He isn't unreachable, he's just not waiting for validation. You won't find him where everyone else is looking because he's already gone, deep into his purpose, unmoved by trends, untouched by manipulation. While others follow the spotlight, the Sigma is lighting his own fire in the dark. And that, more than anything, is what terrifies people, a man who is ungovernable, unshakable, and utterly free. Number 3, he withdraws without warning, no text, no message, just silence, and he's gone. To most, this sudden disappearance is baffling, what the world now calls ghosting. But for a Sigma male, it's not a game or manipulation tactic, it's preservation. In a world that constantly demands attention, reaction, and emotional labor, the Sigma male has mastered the art of withdrawal. When the energy around him becomes draining, when conversations grow artificial, and when social settings reek of pretense, he doesn't linger to argue or explain. He simply leaves. The Sigma's retreat is not cowardice, it's clarity. He knows that words rarely change those committed to misunderstanding him. He operates on a frequency of authenticity and self-containment, and when that frequency is disrupted, he doesn't seek to repair what's broken. He moves on to preserve what's whole within himself. Psychologically, this behavior ties into the Sigma's unique placement on the social hierarchy, outside of it entirely. Unlike alphas who dominate or betas who follow, Sigmas carve their own path, often preferring solitude over shallow interactions. Research in behavioral science suggests that introverted personalities with high self-awareness are more prone to setting firm emotional boundaries, often through avoidance or withdrawal. The Sigma male exemplifies this by creating invisible lines that, once crossed, signal an immediate disengagement. It's not impulsive, it's calculated. He's highly attuned to emotional shifts and can detect disingenuous behavior quickly. When that happens, the Sigma doesn't confront chaos. He simply chooses peace. This form of detachment often confuses others. People question his silence, misinterpret his distance as arrogance, or label his independence as antisocial behavior. But for the Sigma, understanding isn't the goal. Alignment is. And when that alignment breaks, when the connection becomes a drain rather than a source, he honors the fracture by letting it be final. There's a kind of brutal elegance in the way he disappears. Clean, quiet, complete. No bitterness, no blame, just a calculated withdrawal that leaves others wondering what happened while he walks forward unburdened. Because for the Sigma, the loudest statement he can make is often the one left unsaid. Number 4, he sees through social masks. While most men are easily dazzled by external attributes, beauty, charm, status, or wealth, the Sigma male plays a different game entirely. He isn't led by surface-level appeal or manipulated by what is shown to the world. Instead, he observes. He sees patterns in human behavior that others miss. He notices the micro-shifts in posture, the tension behind a fake smile, and the nervous glance that flickers for just a moment too long. Where others listen to words, the Sigma hears the slight crack in a voice, the urgency behind a calm statement. He doesn't need someone to shout to understand intensity. Silence to him is a language richer than dialogue, filled with hesitation, fear, secrets, and intent. This ability to read people like a book without them ever realizing it is unsettling to many. Most are used to hiding behind charm or distractions, but none of that works on a Sigma. He's attuned to the subtle, the invisible, and the intuitive. According to studies in behavioral psychology and nonverbal communication, over 90% of human interaction is conveyed through body language, facial expression, and vocal tone, not actual words. The Sigma male, whether consciously or through natural disposition, has mastered this unspoken language. This is what makes him dangerous in the eyes of manipulators, liars, and pretenders. They can't deceive someone who sees through the mask before it's even fully worn. But here's the twist: he rarely confronts. There's no grand expose, no explosive call-out. He simply acts based on what he knows. He withdraws, avoids, or navigates around the game being played without ever announcing that he's aware of it. That quiet confidence, that internal knowing without the need for validation, unnerves people. In a world where many scream for attention or validation, the Sigma walks calmly, confidently, seeing through illusions. And that's what makes him so powerful. He's not interested in competing on the same field as everyone else. He's already 10 steps ahead, operating on an entirely different level. Those around him may never understand why they feel uneasy in his presence, but somewhere deep down they sense the truth. This man can see what they've worked so hard to conceal. And that awareness, not of facts, but of unspoken truths, is what makes the Sigma both mysterious and magnetic. Number 5, he respects without needing approval. He'll complement the alpha. He'll defend the beta. But he will not kneel to either. That's the Sigma male in his purest form, an enigmatic, autonomous force who operates outside the conventional social hierarchy. Unlike alphas, who often crave dominance, or betas, who may seek approval, the Sigma male values sovereignty above status. He doesn't measure worth by rank, but by character. He may acknowledge an alpha's leadership skills or a beta's loyalty, but he won't submit to either's influence. His allegiance isn't to power or popularity, it's to principle. Respect, in the Sigma's world, is not something handed out like candy, nor is it extracted through fear or flattery. It's earned through authenticity, integrity, and consistency. And when a Sigma offers respect, it's not casual, it's significant. It means you've passed through his quiet internal filters and earned a place of honor in his mind. But beware, if you cross a line, violate his boundaries, or disrespect his core values, you won't get a lecture or a second chance. There will be no emotional explosion, no dramatic fallout, just silence. He'll vanish like smoke from a campfire, swift, cold, and final. This isn't a game of ego, it's a form of self-preservation. Studies in social psychology show that individuals who are highly self-reliant and introspective tend to withdraw rather than confront when trust is broken. That's the Sigma's natural response, not out of weakness, but out of strength. He knows his time, energy, and mental space are sacred, and he protects them fiercely. When he distances himself, it's not to punish, it's to maintain his peace. So if a Sigma walks away, don't mistake his silence for indecision. It's a loud, deliberate choice. He respects others, yes, but he respects himself more. And that's what makes him so rare in a world obsessed with validation and noise. He's not trying to impress you. He's not here to climb ladders or win popularity contests. He's here to live on his own terms, and that makes him both fascinating and formidable. So if a Sigma gives you his respect, cherish it. But if you lose it, don't expect a speech, just expect the echo of his absence. Number 6, he can walk away from anyone. Friend, boss, lover, even family. A Sigma male's boundaries apply across the board, and that's what makes him different. He doesn't walk away from people to make a statement, to be dramatic, or to punish someone with silence. No, he walks away to protect his peace. something he values more than popularity, approval, or tradition. While most people are conditioned to stick around and fix relationships because of history, obligation, or fear of being judged, the Sigma sees it differently. For him, loyalty isn't bought with time spent. It's earned through mutual respect, honesty, and integrity. If that foundation begins to crack, he doesn't waste energy patching a sinking ship. Instead, he quietly steps back. No explanations, no scenes, just distance. Psychologists refer to this as detachment with awareness, the ability to remain emotionally centered while stepping back from unhealthy dynamics. Sigma males have mastered this. They don't thrive on chaos, they retreat from it. It's not that they don't feel pain or care about others. It's that they've learned how to care without sacrificing themselves. When a relationship, whether personal or professional, becomes toxic, they don't argue or beg for respect. They remove themselves. And because this behavior challenges traditional emotional expectations, society often mislabels it as coldness, arrogance, or even narcissism. But in reality, it's emotional discipline rooted in self-preservation. In the animal kingdom, lone wolves are often misunderstood in the same way. They're not banished from the pack. They choose solitude for survival. Sigma males operate on the same principle. They're not antisocial, they're selectively social. Their departure isn't rejection, it's redirection. They understand that not everyone deserves access to their energy. This mindset can be intimidating, especially to those who thrive on codependence or manipulation. But to the Sigma, walking away isn't weakness, it's strength, it's clarity, it's choosing growth over guilt. So when he walks away from a friend, a boss, a lover, even family, it's not to hurt, it's to heal. The world might call that cold, but the Sigma, he calls it survival. And in a society that often rewards conformity and emotional chaos, survival requires a powerful combination of inner peace, quiet strength, and unapologetic self-respect. Number 7, he disarms women without trying. He doesn't chase, he doesn't flirt, he just exists. And somehow that's enough to spark curiosity, admiration, and even desire. The Sigma male operates on a frequency that doesn't beg for attention, but commands it through quiet presence. In a world saturated with performative masculinity, loud bravado, constant validation seeking, and overused pickup tactics, the Sigma male's silence becomes his loudest trait. Psychologists refer to this as non-reactive confidence, a trait linked to emotional intelligence and high self-awareness. His eye contact doesn't dart around nervously, it lingers just long enough to be felt, not forced. His words aren't thrown out like darts in a bar. They're chosen with surgical precision, leaving a lasting impression. And ironically, it's his absence that tends to make the most noise. That's because when someone isn't easily accessible, our brains activate what's called the Zeigarnik effect. We fixate more on the unfinished, the unanswered, and the unknown. This psychological mystery fuels magnetism. He's not playing games or manipulating emotions. What people perceive as seduction is actually discipline, power through restraint. By refusing to chase or conform, the Sigma male reminds others that self-respect is the highest form of attraction. His life doesn't orbit around anyone's validation. It revolves around his mission, his solitude, and his sense of purpose. And that gravitational pull, it's the natural consequence of a man who doesn't try to be magnetic. He just is. In a world where everyone is shouting, his silence becomes the most irresistible sound in the room. Number 8, he forces others to confront themselves. The deepest reason people fear him isn't because he's loud, aggressive, or dominant. It's because he is a mirror that reflects everything they are not. His discipline quietly reveals their procrastination and lack of self-control. When he maintains calm under pressure, it makes their internal chaos feel louder and more unstable. His self-reliance shines a harsh light on their dependency and constant need for validation, and perhaps most unsettling of all is his silence. In a world addicted to noise and distraction, his stillness acts like a spiritual vacuum, forcing others to confront the mental clutter they work so hard to avoid. Neurologically, the brain is wired to seek comfort in familiar behavior. When someone disrupts that norm, especially with stoic calm and quiet strength, it triggers discomfort and even resentment in others. He doesn't need to say a word to challenge someone's identity. He doesn't need to judge, condemn, or compare. He simply, and that unshakable presence is often more terrifying than any confrontation. It's not that he's threatening, he's just authentic. And in a world where masks are worn like armor, authenticity can be both magnetic and intimidating. It shakes foundations, rattles egos, and forces introspection. People fear him not for what he does, but for what he represents. The possibility that they too could be more, but aren't. And that realization, more than anything, can be unbearable. Becoming untouchable isn't about building walls, it's about refining your inner world until nothing external can shake it. A Sigma male isn't created by chance. He's shaped by pressure, like carbon turning into diamond. Every betrayal becomes a lesson. Every setback becomes fuel. Solitude becomes his training ground. While most chase validation, the Sigma retreats inward, mastering his thoughts, sharpening his intentions. Psychologically, this mirrors Carl Jung's concept of individuation, the journey of becoming one's true self, free from societal conditioning. The Sigma doesn't demand attention, yet people notice him. Why? Because authenticity is magnetic. He doesn't follow trends. He becomes the standard others unconsciously measure themselves against. Power, for him, isn't loud or domineering. It's quiet, calculated, and deeply rooted in competence. Neuroscience even shows that individuals who can self-regulate emotions and delay gratification tend to achieve greater long-term success, traits that align with the Sigma's code. His silence isn't emptiness, it's focus. His coldness, precision. If you've been misunderstood for being too quiet, too intense, or too independent, you're likely not lacking anything. You're just operating on a frequency others haven't tuned into. And in a world full of noise, the man who moves in silence becomes the loudest force in the room. The Sigma isn't trying to be untouchable, he just is, because mastery, not popularity, is his North Star. Keep evolving. Stay dangerous. Stay Sigma. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't need to. The very energy that surrounds him speaks louder than words ever could. When a Sigma male walks into a room, there's a sudden shift, like the atmosphere tightens, like everyone becomes subtly aware of his presence. He isn't seeking attention, dominance, or approval. In fact, he avoids it. But paradoxically, this only draws more eyes to him. His silence isn't empty. It carries a weight most can't understand. It's the kind of silence that makes people wonder what he's thinking, what he knows, and why they feel slightly unsettled in his presence. This isn't your typical charisma, the charming, talkative energy that pulls people in. This is something colder, deeper, and more instinctive. Psychology refers to it as silent authority, a powerful phenomenon where someone exerts influence without exertion, simply through their aura, body language, and emotional detachment. Sigma males embody this naturally. They observe more than they speak. They think before they act. And their emotional independence makes them immune to the chaos of social drama. People don't know how to categorize them. They're not alphas trying to lead, not betas trying to please. They're outsiders by choice, strategists by nature, and calm in a way that feels almost alien. It's no surprise that this unnerves others. Studies on nonverbal dominance and perceived threat suggest that people can feel uncomfortable when they encounter someone whose presence contradicts social norms, especially someone who doesn't try to fit in or compete. And yet, that same discomfort is laced with fascination. Some admire his mystery, some envy his control, others despise him, though they can't articulate why. The Sigma doesn't chase respect. He doesn't need to. His self-reliance and psychological depth make him impossible to ignore. So today we journey into his world, to uncover the 8 spine-chilling behaviors that define him, disturb others, and remind us that sometimes the loudest power is the quietest man in the room. Welcome to Brain Boosters, where we decode the psychology of the quiet disruptor. Let's begin. Number 1, he cuts emotion like a blade. Most men react, Sigmas calculate. That's the difference between a wildfire and a controlled burn. One rages out of control, the other is strategic, precise, and necessary. When provoked, the Sigma male doesn't flare up in rage or spiral into emotional theatrics. He studies, he processes. His mind shifts into analytical mode, not fight or flight, because for the Sigma, anger is inefficient. It clouds judgment and wastes energy. Panic, even worse. It's messy, unpredictable, and often exploited by others. Emotion to the Sigma is a vulnerability, an exposed wire that people can tamper with. So he learns early to contain it, not suppress it blindly, but manage it with razor-sharp control. Like a dam holding back a flood, His calm demeanor keeps him watertight, sealed against manipulation and chaos. And this, ironically, makes him dangerous in the eyes of those who thrive on emotional reactions. Manipulators and drama addicts feed on attention, on the tug-of-war of emotional escalation. They're used to pushback, loud objections, drawn-out arguments. But the Sigma gives them none of it. He denies them the battle. He doesn't yell, he doesn't plead, he doesn't even argue. Instead, he might disappear without warning, ghosting toxicity without guilt. Or worse, for those seeking validation, he ends the relationship or conflict with one calm, surgical decision. No drawn-out goodbyes, no need for closure, just a clean break, like cutting a cord that no longer serves him. This is where the real impact happens. Because while most people are accustomed to conflict leaving behind noise, a Sigma's silence echoes louder. His refusal to engage, to justify, to return, leaves scars. Not from violence or cruelty, but from the quiet void he creates. He doesn't seek revenge or make a scene. He simply moves on. And that can be more psychologically jarring than any shouting match. Studies in psychology have shown that emotional detachment, especially when unexpected, can be more unsettling than confrontation. It leaves the other party with unanswered questions, forced into self-reflection they didn't ask for. This is the Sigma's power, not in domination, but in unshakable control. While the world spins in drama and emotional chaos, the Sigma remains still, deliberate, and almost ghost-like in his movement. That makes him hard to manipulate, hard to decode, and even harder to forget. And that's precisely why his presence and absence leave a lasting mark. Number 2, he's immune to status games. While others measure their value in titles, followers, and fame, the Sigma male quietly walks away from it all, not out of arrogance, but out of alignment with deeper truths. In a world obsessed with recognition, he is a rare breed who finds no need to broadcast his worth. He could be wealthy beyond imagination, powerful beyond comprehension, yet he moves in silence. You won't find him chasing applause or scrambling for likes because his self-worth isn't constructed from external validation. It's built in silence, forged in the fire of solitude, and tested through trials of self-reliance. This is what makes him dangerous, because the very things that society uses to control, tempt, or manipulate others simply don't work on him. You can't lure a man with status when he's already content in isolation. You can't intimidate a man who's not afraid to lose you. Sigma males function outside the traditional hierarchy, not below it or above it, but completely off the grid. They are lone wolves who operate with surgical precision, not because they have something to prove, but because they have nothing to lose. Psychologically, this level of detachment is unsettling to those who are addicted to attention and approval. The Sigma's independence reflects a form of quiet rebellion, a rejection of superficial metrics in favor of internal mastery. Research in behavioral psychology even supports this trait. Studies show that those with high levels of intrinsic motivation tend to be more creative, resilient, and less susceptible to peer pressure. Sigma males embody that principle in full. They aren't antisocial, they're selectively social. They don't hate authority, they just don't need it, and they don't fear being alone, because they've turned solitude into a sanctuary. In the modern era, where digital noise drowns out authenticity, the Sigma male's refusal to play the popularity game is both radical and refreshing. He isn't unreachable, he's just not waiting for validation. You won't find him where everyone else is looking because he's already gone, deep into his purpose, unmoved by trends, untouched by manipulation. While others follow the spotlight, the Sigma is lighting his own fire in the dark. And that, more than anything, is what terrifies people, a man who is ungovernable, unshakable, and utterly free. Number 3, he withdraws without warning, no text, no message, just silence, and he's gone. To most, this sudden disappearance is baffling, what the world now calls ghosting. But for a Sigma male, it's not a game or manipulation tactic, it's preservation. In a world that constantly demands attention, reaction, and emotional labor, the Sigma male has mastered the art of withdrawal. When the energy around him becomes draining, when conversations grow artificial, and when social settings reek of pretense, he doesn't linger to argue or explain. He simply leaves. The Sigma's retreat is not cowardice, it's clarity. He knows that words rarely change those committed to misunderstanding him. He operates on a frequency of authenticity and self-containment, and when that frequency is disrupted, he doesn't seek to repair what's broken. He moves on to preserve what's whole within himself. Psychologically, this behavior ties into the sigma's unique placement on the social hierarchy, outside of it entirely. Unlike alphas who dominate or betas who follow, sigmas carve their own path, often preferring solitude over shallow interactions. Research in behavioral science suggests that introverted personalities with high self-awareness are more prone to setting firm emotional boundaries, often through avoidance or withdrawal. The sigma male exemplifies this by creating invisible lines that, once crossed, signal an immediate disengagement. It's not impulsive, it's calculated. He's highly attuned to emotional shifts and can detect disingenuous behavior quickly. When that happens, the sigma doesn't confront chaos. He simply chooses peace. This form of detachment often confuses others. People question his silence, misinterpret his distance as arrogance, or label his independence as antisocial behavior. But for the sigma, understanding isn't the goal. Alignment is. And when that alignment breaks, when the connection becomes a drain rather than a source, he honors the fracture by letting it be final. There's a kind of brutal elegance in the way he disappears. Clean, quiet, complete. No bitterness, no blame, just a calculated withdrawal that leaves others wondering what happened while he walks forward unburdened. Because for the sigma, the loudest statement he can make is often the one left unsaid. Number 4, he sees through social masks. While most men are easily dazzled by external attributes, beauty, charm, status, or wealth, the sigma male plays a different game entirely. He isn't led by surface-level appeal or manipulated by what is shown to the world. Instead, he observes. He sees patterns in human behavior that others miss. He notices the micro-shifts in posture, the tension behind a fake smile, and the nervous glance that flickers for just a moment too long. Where others listen to words, the sigma hears the slight crack in a voice, the urgency behind a calm statement. He doesn't need someone to shout to understand intensity. Silence to him is a language richer than dialogue, filled with hesitation, fear, secrets, and intent. This ability to read people like a book without them ever realizing it is unsettling to many. Most are used to hiding behind charm or distractions, but none of that works on a sigma. He's attuned to the subtle, the invisible, and the intuitive. According to studies in behavioral psychology and nonverbal communication, over 90% of human interaction is conveyed through body language, facial expression, and vocal tone, not actual words. The sigma male, whether consciously or through natural disposition, has mastered this unspoken language. This is what makes him dangerous in the eyes of manipulators, liars, and pretenders. They can't deceive someone who sees through the mask before it's even fully worn. But here's the twist: he rarely confronts. There's no grand expose, no explosive call-out. He simply acts based on what he knows. He withdraws, avoids, or navigates around the game being played without ever announcing that he's aware of it. That quiet confidence, that internal knowing without the need for validation, unnerves people. In a world where many scream for attention or validation, the sigma walks calmly, confidently, seeing through illusions. And that's what makes him so powerful. He's not interested in competing on the same field as everyone else. He's already 10 steps ahead, operating on an entirely different level. Those around him may never understand why they feel uneasy in his presence, but somewhere deep down they sense the truth. This man can see what they've worked so hard to conceal. And that awareness, not of facts, but of unspoken truths, is what makes the sigma both mysterious and magnetic. Number 5, he respects without needing approval. He'll compliment the alpha. He'll defend the beta. But he will not kneel to either. That's the sigma male in his purest form, an enigmatic, autonomous force who operates outside the conventional social hierarchy. Unlike alphas, who often crave dominance, or betas, who may seek approval, the sigma male values sovereignty above status. He doesn't measure worth by rank, but by character. He may acknowledge an alpha's leadership skills or a beta's loyalty, but he won't submit to either's influence. His allegiance isn't to power or popularity, it's to principle. Respect, in the sigma's world, is not something handed out like candy, nor is it extracted through fear or flattery. It's earned through authenticity, integrity, and consistency. And when a sigma offers respect, it's not casual, it's significant. It means you've passed through his quiet internal filters and earned a place of honor in his mind. But beware, if you cross a line, violate his boundaries, or disrespect his core values, you won't get a lecture or a second chance. There will be no emotional explosion, no dramatic fallout, just silence. He'll vanish like smoke from a campfire, swift, cold, and final. This isn't a game of ego, it's a form of self-preservation. Studies in social psychology show that individuals who are highly self-reliant and introspective tend to withdraw rather than confront when trust is broken. That's the Sigma's natural response, not out of weakness, but out of strength. He knows his time, energy, and mental space are sacred, and he protects them fiercely. When he distances himself, it's not to punish, it's to maintain his peace. So if a Sigma walks away, don't mistake his silence for indecision. It's a loud, deliberate choice. He respects others, yes, but he respects himself more. And that's what makes him so rare in a world obsessed with validation and noise. He's not trying to impress you. He's not here to climb ladders or win popularity contests. He's here to live on his own terms, and that makes him both fascinating and formidable. So if a Sigma gives you his respect, cherish it. But if you lose it, don't expect a speech, just expect the echo of his absence. Number 6, he can walk away from anyone. Friend, boss, lover, even family. A Sigma male's boundaries apply across the board, and that's what makes him different. He doesn't walk away from people to make a statement, to be dramatic, or to punish someone with silence. No, he walks away to protect his peace, something he values more than popularity, approval, or tradition. While most people are conditioned to stick around and fix relationships because of history, obligation, or fear of being judged, the Sigma sees it differently. For him, loyalty isn't bought with time spent. It's earned through mutual respect, honesty, and integrity. If that foundation begins to crack, he doesn't waste energy patching a sinking ship. Instead, he quietly steps back. No explanations, no scenes, just distance. Psychologists refer to this as detachment with awareness, the ability to remain emotionally centered while stepping back from unhealthy dynamics. Sigma males have mastered this. They don't thrive on chaos, they retreat from it. It's not that they don't feel pain or care about others. It's that they've learned how to care without sacrificing themselves. When a relationship, whether personal or professional, becomes toxic, they don't argue or beg for respect. They remove themselves. And because this behavior challenges traditional emotional expectations, society often mislabels it as coldness, arrogance, or even narcissism. But in reality, it's emotional discipline rooted in self-preservation. In the animal kingdom, lone wolves are often misunderstood in the same way. They're not banished from the pack. They choose solitude for survival. Sigma males operate on the same principle. They're not antisocial, they're selectively social. Their departure isn't rejection, it's redirection. They understand that not everyone deserves access to their energy. This mindset can be intimidating, especially to those who thrive on codependence or manipulation. But to the Sigma, walking away isn't weakness, it's strength, it's clarity, it's choosing growth over guilt. So when he walks away from a friend, a boss, a lover, even family, it's not to hurt, it's to heal. The world might call that cold, but the Sigma, he calls it survival. And in a society that often rewards conformity and emotional chaos, survival requires a powerful combination of inner peace, quiet strength, and unapologetic self-respect. Number 7, he disarms women without trying. He doesn't chase, he doesn't flirt, he just exists. And somehow that's enough to spark curiosity, admiration, and even desire. The Sigma male operates on a frequency that doesn't beg for attention, but commands it through quiet presence. In a world saturated with performative masculinity, loud bravado, constant validation seeking, and overused pickup tactics, the Sigma male's silence becomes his loudest trait. Psychologists refer to this as non-reactive confidence, a trait linked to emotional intelligence and high self-awareness. His eye contact doesn't dart around nervously, it lingers just long enough to be felt, not forced. His words aren't thrown out like darts in a bar. They're chosen with surgical precision, leaving a lasting impression. And ironically, it's his absence that tends to make the most noise. That's because when someone isn't easily accessible, our brains activate what's called the Zeigarnik effect. We fixate more on the unfinished, the unanswered, and the unknown. This psychological mystery fuels magnetism. He's not playing games or manipulating emotions. What people perceive as seduction is actually discipline, power through restraint. By refusing to chase or conform, the Sigma male reminds others that self-respect is the highest form of attraction. His life doesn't orbit around anyone's validation. It revolves around his mission, his solitude, and his sense of purpose. And that gravitational pull, it's the natural consequence of a man who doesn't try to be magnetic. He just is. In a world where everyone is shouting, his silence becomes the most irresistible sound in the room. Number 8, he forces others to confront themselves. The deepest reason people fear him isn't because he's loud, aggressive, or dominant. It's because he is a mirror that reflects everything they are not. His discipline quietly reveals their procrastination and lack of self-control. When he maintains calm under pressure, it makes their internal chaos feel louder and more unstable. His self-reliance shines a harsh light on their dependency and constant need for validation, and perhaps most unsettling of all is his silence. In a world addicted to noise and distraction, his stillness acts like a spiritual vacuum, forcing others to confront the mental clutter they work so hard to avoid. Neurologically, the brain is wired to seek comfort in familiar behavior. When someone disrupts that norm, especially with stoic calm and quiet strength, it triggers discomfort and even resentment in others. He doesn't need to say a word to challenge someone's identity. He doesn't need to judge, condemn, or compare. He simply, and that unshakable presence is often more terrifying than any confrontation. It's not that he's threatening, he's just authentic. And in a world where masks are worn like armor, authenticity can be both magnetic and intimidating. It shakes foundations, rattles egos, and forces introspection. People fear him not for what he does, but for what he represents. The possibility that they too could be more, but aren't. And that realization, more than anything, can be unbearable. Becoming untouchable isn't about building walls, it's about refining your inner world until nothing external can shake it. A Sigma male isn't created by chance. He's shaped by pressure, like carbon turning into diamond. Every betrayal becomes a lesson. Every setback becomes fuel. Solitude becomes his training ground. While most chase validation, the Sigma retreats inward, mastering his thoughts, sharpening his intentions. Psychologically, this mirrors Carl Jung's concept of individuation, the journey of becoming one's true self, free from societal conditioning. The Sigma doesn't demand attention, yet people notice him. Why? Because authenticity is magnetic. He doesn't follow trends. He becomes the standard others unconsciously measure themselves against. Power, for him, isn't loud or domineering. It's quiet, calculated, and deeply rooted in competence. Neuroscience even shows that individuals who can self-regulate emotions and delay gratification tend to achieve greater long-term success, traits that align with the Sigma's code. His silence isn't emptiness, it's focus. His coldness, precision. If you've been misunderstood for being too quiet, too intense, or too independent, you're likely not lacking anything. You're just operating on a frequency others haven't tuned into. And in a world full of noise, the man who moves in silence becomes the loudest force in the room. The Sigma isn't trying to be untouchable, he just is, because mastery, not popularity, is his North Star. Keep evolving. Stay dangerous. Stay Sigma. He doesn't repeat his power, he refines it. While the world scrambles for attention, validation, and recognition, the Sigma male operates in silence. His presence barely noticed, yet his impact unmistakable. He doesn't broadcast his moves because he knows true strength doesn't need a spotlight. Instead of showing off, he sharpens his edge, daily, silently, methodically. In the realm of personal development, Sigma males embody the psychological concept of deliberate practice, a scientifically backed method used by elite performers to improve mastery through focused, repetitive effort. He's not grinding for applause. He's building internal resilience and mental clarity. Studies in behavioral science show that individuals who embrace solitude and intrinsic motivation often outperform those driven by external approval. That's the Sigma in action. You don't see him coming because he's not broadcasting his climb. He's busy refining the blueprint. And by the time you notice, he's already executed the next move. This video isn't for the average man, the crowd pleaser, or the trend follower. It's for the lone wolf, the man whose silence is louder than 1,000 voices, whose discipline is a fortress. He doesn't chase popularity or mimic culture. He builds character through invisible routines. Repetition is his ritual. Focus is his fuel. His habits may look ordinary, but underneath lies a tactical system for personal dominance, rooted in self-control, strategic detachment, and mental discipline. He's not chasing wins to compete with others. He's busy conquering himself. The Sigma male is a living paradox, highly capable but disinterested in validation, highly present yet seemingly distant, and that makes him unshakable. Today we're going deep into the core of his mindset, unpacking the 8 unstoppable habits that forge his inner command. These aren't flashy or performative. They are refined, calculated, and powerful tools that turn an average man into an exceptional one. This isn't about impressing the world. It's about mastering your own. Let's begin. Number 1, tactical mindfulness. The Sigma male is hyper-aware, but not hyperactive. There's a significant difference. Unlike the average person who gets pulled in 100 directions by social media, opinions, gossip, and emotional impulses, the Sigma male practices what can only be described as tactical mindfulness. This isn't about sitting cross-legged in a mountain cave humming to the universe. No, this is mental warfare. Tactical mindfulness is the deliberate discipline of knowing deserves your attention and deserves to be ignored. It's not about zoning out. It's about zoning on what actually matters. The Sigma doesn't allow his mental space to become a dumping ground for emotional clutter or useless distractions. Instead, he filters every thought like a sniper watching through a scope. Steady, selective, precise. If a thought or emotion enters his mind, it doesn't get an automatic reaction. It gets observed, evaluated, and either redirected or discarded. This level of discipline comes from understanding how the brain works. Neuroscience shows that the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for decision-making and focus, is easily hijacked by constant stimulation. But Sigmas are wired differently. They train themselves to resist this hijacking by consciously limiting exposure to unnecessary input. That means turning off the noise, setting boundaries with toxic people, and even ignoring inner dialogue that doesn't serve a purpose. This self-awareness creates a calm, unshakable mental state. In a world that rewards reaction, the Sigma rewards reflection. When chaos breaks out, he's not the one panicking, he's the one assessing. When distractions flood the room, he narrows his focus even more. This doesn't mean he's emotionless, it means he's emotionally intelligent. He's not cold, he's calculated. And this makes him nearly impossible to manipulate. People can't guilt-trip him, push his buttons, or steer him with drama. Why? Because he's already spotted the game. He's already decided whether it's worth his energy. That's what tactical mindfulness gives him, the ability to choose his mental battles wisely. In a sense, the Sigma male operates like a stoic strategist in a noisy battlefield, watching, waiting, and only acting when it truly matters. It's not laziness, it's mastery, and while the rest of the world is spinning in emotional circles, the Sigma stands firm, hyper-aware of the storm, but never swept away by it. Number 2, minimalism as a weapon. To most people, minimalism is just a style, clean lines, neutral tones, and tidy spaces that look good on social media. But for the Sigma male, minimalism goes far deeper. It's not about aesthetics, it's about efficiency. It's a conscious strategy designed to eliminate distractions and amplify focus. His minimalist life is not the result of lacking resources or ambition, it's the result of surgical selection. He doesn't fill his closet with clothes he'll never wear or his schedule with events that drain his energy. He curates his environment, his commitments, and even his social circle with ruthless precision. Everything in his world exists to serve a purpose. If it doesn't serve, it doesn't stay. This stripped-down approach is more than personal preference, it's backed by cognitive science. Studies show that cluttered environments increase stress levels and reduce productivity. The Sigma male intuitively understands this. A minimalist lifestyle frees his mental bandwidth for what truly matters: creation, strategy, and freedom. His space is clean because his mind is clear. He doesn't need to be surrounded by symbols of status or abundance to feel powerful. He knows real strength lies in control. And nothing says control like being intentional about what enters your life. By owning fewer things, he has fewer worries. By talking less, he understands more. By staying under the radar, he can move without resistance. This isn't isolation, it's insulation. His silence protects him. His simplicity empowers him. While the rest of the world is busy broadcasting their lives, chasing trends, and collecting clutter, physical, emotional, and digital, the Sigma male is somewhere quiet, listening, observing, planning. The loud world misses the subtleties. The Sigma doesn't. In the stillness of his lifestyle, he picks up on what others overlook: opportunities, intentions, and patterns. Minimalism for him is armor. It shields him from noise, nonsense, and needless obligations. It grants him time, focus, and freedom, resources far more valuable than material possessions. He's not trying to impress, he's trying to progress. And ironically, by removing the excess, he gains the ultimate luxury: clarity. His life isn't empty, it's razor sharp. Every object, word, and action has weight. To the world, it may seem like he's holding back. In truth, he's holding power, quietly, strategically, and on his own terms. Number 3, deep work over shallow motion. While others glorify hustle, the Sigma male seeks depth. In a world that idolizes grinding 24/7, Sigma males quietly rebel, not by being lazy, but by being focused. He doesn't mistake being busy for being productive. Instead, he invests in what Cal Newport famously called deep work, the ability to focus without distraction on cognitively demanding tasks. Unlike the masses who are trapped in endless cycles of checking emails, responding to pings, and doom scrolling on social media, the Sigma operates in what neuroscientists call a flow state. This is where the brain hits peak performance, no interruptions, no dopamine chasing, just full immersion. Research shows that multitasking reduces productivity by up to 40%, yet society still clings to it like a badge of honor. The Sigma knows better. His routine is built around cognitive solitude, extended periods of intentional silence where he can think, build, and execute without being pulled in 1,000 directions. From the outside, his progress may seem slow, even invisible. He's not constantly updating his followers or flaunting productivity hacks. But underneath, his work is surgical, precise, layered, and cumulative. Like a master sculptor chiseling away at marble, every session of deep focus removes what's unnecessary and reveals something timeless. While others chase quantity, more meetings, more posts, more noise, the Sigma chases quality. It's not about how many hours he puts in, it's about what those hours produce. 1 hour of uninterrupted deep work can be more valuable than an entire day of distracted busyness. He creates systems, not chaos. He builds leverage, not burnout. He doesn't need to prove he's working because the results, when they come, are undeniable. This is why Sigma males are often underestimated until suddenly they're years ahead. Their secret isn't speed, it's direction. It's not about doing more. It's about doing what matters, deeply, deliberately, and without distraction. Number 4, mastery through repetition. The Sigma male doesn't chase novelty. He worships repetition. In a world obsessed with shortcuts, dopamine hits, and the next big thing, the Sigma walks a different path, one paved with discipline, monotony, and mastery. While others jump from one trend to another, seeking excitement and instant gratification, the Sigma drills the same movements, thoughts, and actions over and over again until they vanish into muscle memory. This isn't a lack of creativity, it's the pursuit of precision. Psychology and neuroscience back this up. Studies show that repetition strengthens neural pathways, allowing actions and thoughts to become automatic and more efficient over time. This is how elite performers, whether athletes, musicians, or thinkers, achieve excellence. They don't rely on motivation or mood, they rely on habits. Bruce Lee once said, "I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times." That's the Sigma's philosophy in a sentence. He knows that true excellence is boring. It's not flashy. It's the same action, repeated until it becomes a razor's edge. Even the most creative geniuses, from Leonardo da Vinci to Kobe Bryant, understood that greatness isn't found in bursts of inspiration, but in the quiet grind, daily, unrelenting, ritualistic. The Sigma doesn't chase new tools or distractions because he understands that mastery comes from depth, not width. He knows that repetition is how instinct is built, and instinct is how legends are made. While others burn out chasing novelty, the Sigma burns deeper, forging something timeless in the fire of repetition. Talent might give someone a head start, but repetition decides who finishes the race. That's why the Sigma rises, not because he was born gifted, but because he kept showing up. He refines the same power again and again until it becomes invisible, until it becomes him. Number 5, emotional control as power. While others explode, the Sigma absorbs. In a world addicted to instant reactions and emotional outbursts, the Sigma male remains still, centered, and deeply aware. He feels everything, yes, the rage, the doubt, the longing, but he doesn't leak. His emotional control is not a byproduct of repression or apathy, it's the result of deliberate training. Many mislabel this as coldness, as if his silence signals a lack of feeling. But in reality, it's the opposite. He feels more than most. He just doesn't let those feelings run the show. Instead of becoming a puppet to his emotions, he studies them, understanding where they come from, how they work, and what they're trying to signal. This is emotional intelligence in its rawest form, not the sanitized version taught in corporate workshops, but the battlefield-tested awareness that separates leaders from followers. A Sigma doesn't let anger drive him into reckless decisions. He lets it sharpen his clarity, but never his tongue. He doesn't allow fear to stall his momentum. It becomes fuel, not a chain. And while desire can blind most men for the Sigma, it becomes a challenge to master, not an urge to indulge blindly. Modern psychology supports this kind of self-regulation. Studies in emotional intelligence by researchers like Daniel Goleman show that those who can understand and manage their emotional responses tend to perform better in leadership roles, relationships, and crisis situations. This is where the Sigma thrives, not because he denies emotion, but because he has power over it. This habit of feeling deeply but choosing his response deliberately is what makes the Sigma dangerous, not in a violent way, but in an unpredictable, high-level chess player way. People expect reactions. The Sigma gives them silence. They push for buttons to press. He shows none. While others are emotionally hijacked by the moment, the Sigma remains anchored. His stoic demeanor isn't a mask, it's his real face, forged by experiences that taught him to stop leaking energy into the void. And that's the threat, not that he feels nothing, but that he feels everything, dissects it like a strategist, and acts only when it serves a higher purpose. That's not coldness, that's control. Number 6, strategic disappearance. One of the Sigma male's most misunderstood behaviors is his sudden tendency to vanish without explanation. To many it seems cold, distant, or emotionally detached. But for the Sigma, this disappearance isn't about running away from people. It's a tactical withdrawal from the chaos of external noise. He retreats not because he's overwhelmed, but because he's recalibrating. Just like an elite operative who vanishes to regroup and re-strategize, the Sigma uses solitude to sharpen his mind, reset his instincts, and protect his vision from the constant bombardment of distractions and emotional interference. In psychology, this aligns with the concept of the idea that our brains have a limited capacity for processing information. Social interactions, no matter how minor, consume energy. The Sigma knows this intuitively. By stepping back into silence, he creates space for deep reflection, uninterrupted focus, and personal growth. Neuroscience even supports this. Studies show that periods of solitude enhance creativity, boost memory consolidation, and activate the brain's default mode network, responsible for introspection and future planning. When the Sigma male ghosts, he's not ghosting people out of spite. He's ghosting the mindless small talk, the social expectations, and the uninvited opinions that clutter his path. In a world obsessed with constant visibility, he recognizes that presence can be draining and that too much exposure weakens clarity. His disappearance, then, is not a form of emotional immaturity, but a form of psychological self-preservation. It is a discipline, a power move. His silence isn't absence, it's presence in another form, and while others interpret his detachment as a flaw, the Sigma sees it as evolution. He's not escaping, he's elevating in stealth mode. This habit of vanishing is his way of staying in control, preserving energy and aligning himself with a higher sense of purpose. Because sometimes the best way to stay true to who you are is to disappear just long enough to return with more focus, more clarity, and more force than before. Number 7, information over opinion. The Sigma male moves through the world with a quiet force that baffles those addicted to noise. While most are quick to speak, eager to react, and desperate to be heard, the Sigma does something radically different. He waits. He doesn't speak unless there's value in his words. And that's not because he's shy or unsure. It's because he respects the power of language. In a society where words are used carelessly and opinions are hurled like weapons, the Sigma treats communication like a craft. He knows that silence, when used wisely, is more commanding than the loudest voice in the room. He doesn't argue for the sake of being right. Instead, he observes. He watches people, patterns, and behaviors. He dissects headlines, questions the motives behind them, and follows the trail of information far beyond what's trending. The sigma is a student of reality, while others form their beliefs based on tribe, emotion, or ideology. The sigma seeks facts. Studies show that people are more likely to believe emotionally charged falsehoods than objective truths, a phenomenon psychologists call the illusory truth effect. But the sigma resists that trap. He chooses information over opinion, logic over emotion, and truth over tribal loyalty. He's the kind of man who would rather spend an hour reading a well-researched book than debating someone who hasn't questioned their own beliefs in years. And when he listens, it's not just to respond, it's to understand. He sees listening as a tool to learn, not a pause before counterattack. That's why when a sigma finally speaks, it's like a spotlight turning on in a dark room. People notice, they lean in. His words carry weight because they've been distilled through thought, reflection, and intention. They're not off the cuff or driven by ego, they're deliberate. In a world full of chatter, the sigma's voice cuts through because it isn't competing for attention. It commands it. He's proof that silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. In an age ruled by reaction, he remains grounded, calm, and informed. And that makes him dangerous in the best possible way, because when a man like that finally speaks, people don't just listen, they. Number 8, self-initiated evolution. The final habit of the sigma male isn't really a habit at all, it's a guiding principle. He lives by a code of constant evolution, not because society demands it or because some motivational speaker told him to, but because he expects it of himself. While many people wait until a life crisis, like a breakup, financial loss, or health scare, to reevaluate and grow, the sigma male operates differently. He doesn't need to hit rock bottom to start climbing. Instead, he actively studies his blind spots, his flaws, and his patterns before they sabotage him. Psychologists refer to this kind of self-directed growth as a cognitive process that allows someone to manage their behavior and adapt to changing environments. But for the sigma, it goes beyond a psychological concept, it's a lifestyle. He treats each version of himself as a draft, not a final copy. He's not married to one identity or persona. He doesn't cling to who he was a year ago. He doesn't say, that's just how I am. Instead, he's addicted to improvement, always hunting for what needs to be refined. While others chase comfort, routine, and social approval, the sigma male seeks challenge, change, and clarity. When others plateau and settle, he shifts. This ability to stay in motion, to adapt, and to intentionally shed old skins is what makes the sigma a quiet force. In evolutionary terms, adaptability is survival. In the sigma's world, it's not just survival, it's dominance. He keeps climbing long after others give up. Not because he has something to prove, but because rising is the only direction he knows. This isn't motivation. This is identity, forged through discipline, and that's what makes him unstoppable. The sigma male isn't some fantasy dreamed up by online forums or social media trends. He's a real, evolving archetype, a man who walks a solitary path with purpose, not out of rebellion, but out of alignment with something deeper. Unlike alpha males who dominate through presence or betas who follow to feel safe, the sigma carves his own lane, often mastering life's subtleties that most overlook. He doesn't chase validation, popularity, or comparison. His competition is the man he was yesterday. He's not trying to be above anyone. He's too engrossed in becoming the most refined, self-possessed version of himself. This isn't a character act. It's a lifestyle rooted in autonomy, introspection, and emotional control. If you've ever felt the weight of silence more powerful than the loudest voice in the room, if you find peace in solitude and discomfort in shallow social noise, you may already be living by sigma habits without even knowing it. And here's the truth. You don't need to overhaul who you are. You need to polish what's already within. Society often tries to mold men into predictable roles. But sigma men aren't here to play a role. They're here to build legacies in silence, to shape influence without shouting, and to prove that masculinity doesn't need a spotlight to be powerful. In a world addicted to attention, the sigma stays elusive, yet magnetic. The future doesn't belong to the loudest. It belongs to those who understand when to speak, when to act, and when to disappear. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs more men of quiet power, more thoughtful builders, more refined warriors. It needs more sigma. Stay curious, stay deliberate, stay sigma. He doesn't follow the noise. He doesn't lead the crowd. He simply moves when it's time, and when he does, the world adjusts. This isn't just poetic flair, it's the essence of a Sigma male, a man who lives by his own rhythm, untethered by society's expectations. Unlike alpha males who command the spotlight or beta males who follow the herd, the Sigma male operates outside the hierarchy altogether. He doesn't need to dominate others to feel powerful, nor does he seek permission to exist authentically. In a world obsessed with attention, the Sigma finds power in restraint. He thrives in solitude, not because he's antisocial, but because solitude sharpens his mind and strengthens his independence. Psychologically, Sigma males tend to score high on traits like autonomy, introspection, and emotional self-regulation. They're strategic thinkers, not driven by ego, but by purpose. His silence isn't emptiness, it's calculation. He speaks when there's something worth saying. He moves when the time is right. His unpredictability isn't random, it's precise. He's the man who skips the party but shows up when things fall apart and knows exactly what to do. While others seek status symbols or social validation, the Sigma male finds satisfaction in self-mastery. He reads people effortlessly, not to manipulate them, but to stay steps ahead. Many confuse his detachment for coldness, but in truth he feels deeply. He simply refuses to perform his emotions. This rarity in temperament makes him misunderstood, even feared. But make no mistake, behind the stillness lies intensity, behind the silence is strength, and behind the detachment is purpose. If you've ever felt the urge to detach from shallow connections, to walk alone with your thoughts and to carve your own path in a world full of echo chambers, then maybe you're not broken, maybe you're Sigma. So let's break the silence and explore what it truly means to walk alone, not out of rejection, but by deliberate, fearless choice. Number 1, you feel like a ghost in the crowd. You walk through crowded places and still feel untouched, not because you're invisible, but because you're untethered. It's not loneliness that accompanies you, it's liberation. You observe the world, but you're not consumed by it. While others claw for attention, affirmation, and social currency, you remain sovereign, like vapor drifting past the noise. This isn't apathy, it's awareness. You've chosen not to belong because you understand something others haven't realized yet. The world is full of performances. People wear masks, not to deceive maliciously, but to survive. Behind every perfectly filtered smile is an unspoken fear of inadequacy. Behind every loud voice in the room is often a quiet cry for relevance. You see this, you hear it, and because of that, you've made a conscious decision not to get caught in the game. Psychologists might call this trait high self-monitoring with low social dependency. In layman's terms, you're incredibly perceptive but uninterested in fitting in. Research in personality psychology even places people like you in what's known as the introverted intuitive category, individuals who find depth more fulfilling than social stimulation. You're not antisocial, you're just selectively engaged. You prefer meaningful conversations over meaningless chatter, solitude over superficial gatherings, and authenticity over popularity. That makes you rare and misunderstood. The world will tempt you with noise, trends, status, and distractions carefully designed to hijack your attention and manipulate your choices. Algorithms are coded to study your behavior and serve you the next dopamine hit, but you don't bite. Why? Because your center, your internal compass, is too deeply rooted. It isn't rebellion that keeps you out of the crowd, it's clarity. You don't need to be seen to feel real. You don't need approval to feel worthy. You're grounded in something far more durable than fleeting validation. You walk through chaos like a ghost walks through walls, not out of detachment, but out of alignment. You move differently because your soul isn't searching for shelter in the noise. It's already found home in silence, and that silence is your power. While the world races, you remain still. While others mimic, you observe. While most are trying to be everything, you're just being authentically, quietly, and powerfully. That's not weakness. That's a form of strength few understand. It's not that the world can't touch you. It's that it no longer defines you. Number 2, you crave freedom over belonging. Most people spend their lives searching for belonging, for a tribe to identify with, a group to validate them, or a label to wear with pride. They want connection, applause, and a place in the social architecture that makes them feel safe and seen. But you're wired differently. While others seek tribes, you seek escape. The more you're expected to conform to a role, whether it's the prestigious job title, the curated friend group, or the endless chase for digital applause, the more suffocated you feel. These aren't accomplishments to you, they're chains, no matter how shiny they look. You see, there's a psychological principle known as the innate human response to resist when freedom is threatened. For most, this is a subtle force. For you, it's a roaring instinct. The moment something or someone tries to claim ownership over your time, your thoughts, or your loyalty, your mind immediately begins crafting an exit strategy. You weren't designed to live in cages, especially golden ones that masquerade as success. You value sovereignty more than comfort. This world conditions people to be loyal to systems, to companies, to schools, to governments, and to ideologies. But you answer only to principle, to your own internal compass, not to the latest trend or crowd-pleasing belief. That unnerves people. They're not used to someone who walks away from status, attention, or approval without hesitation. They call it cold. They misunderstand your silence as arrogance and your independence as rebellion. But to you, it's clarity. It's the refusal to betray your values just to be liked. It's knowing that peace is found in solitude, not in performance. You don't want to fit in, you want to breathe. You want truth over comfort, freedom over applause, and depth over noise. The world will keep trying to categorize you, to pin you down, to make you digestible and safe. But you were never meant to be understood in a single glance. You're the outlier, the lone wolf, the one who doesn't need the campfire to feel warm. You navigate life on your own terms, not because you're antisocial, but because your spirit is too expansive for fences. While others lose themselves trying to belong, you find yourself every time you walk away. Number 3, you think more than you speak. Your silence is not emptiness. It's precision, strategic, deliberate, and deeply intentional. While the world clamors for attention, shouts over itself to be noticed, and rushes to fill every moment with noise, you sit quietly in observation. This isn't passive stillness. It's power in its most refined form. You speak only when the words are worth their weight, when they carry purpose, clarity, and impact. Every sentence that leaves your lips is a calculated move, not a careless reaction. In a culture obsessed with oversharing, your restraint becomes your signature. Psychologists have long studied the power of silence in communication. It creates space, commands attention, and often says more than words ever could. Sigma males in particular master this principle. Their silence is never accidental. It's a reflection of inner control, intellectual filtering, and emotional discipline. They don't need to prove themselves through constant chatter. Instead, they observe the patterns others miss. The shift in tone, the flicker of hesitation, the subtle manipulations woven into conversation. These quiet men are human lie detectors with highly tuned emotional intelligence. And when they finally speak, people stop, because they know something meaningful is about to unfold. It's rare, and that's what makes it magnetic. You're not afraid of silence because you understand its strategic value. Silence, for you, is a weapon, a filter, and a mirror all at once. It exposes the insecure and unsettles the manipulative. It protects your thoughts and sharpens your focus. Inside your mind is not a void, it's a fortress layered with calculation, reflection, and mental blueprints that would overwhelm the average thinker. Only a few are ever allowed in, and those who do earn access, they quickly learn that behind your quiet exterior is a symphony of strategy, a relentless current of thought. You're not passive, you're potent, and your silence, it's not the absence of a voice, it's the presence of a mind that refuses to waste words. Number 4, you don't need constant stimulation, you don't fear boredom, you use it. In a world addicted to stimulation, silence has become a stranger to most. The average man escapes it by diving into distractions, doom scrolling on his phone, filling the air with senseless chatter, or chasing temporary highs just to avoid being alone with his own mind. But not you. When the noise dies down, you don't panic. You thrive. You fill the quiet not with chaos, but with clarity. In those still moments, you're not wasting time, you're investing it. You analyze, recalibrate, and design your next move while others are busy avoiding themselves. This is where the Sigma male's true strength begins to emerge. Not in external conquest, but in internal mastery. This isn't just some mysterious persona, it's rooted in real psychological research. Studies in cognitive science show that solitude, especially intentional solitude, increases self-awareness, creativity, and problem-solving ability. In 2017, a study published in found that individuals who seek solitude, not from social anxiety but from self-preference, tend to be more emotionally stable and intellectually independent. You don't disappear because you're broken. You disappear because you're building. That absence isn't a cry for attention. It's a return to the workshop of your mind, where chaos gets filtered into purpose. You may go silent for days, turn your phone off, let calls ring out. It's not bitterness, it's a tune-up. While the world thinks you're off-grid, you're actually on target, removing the distractions that dilute your focus. You're studying people, patterns and plans, getting ready, because real power doesn't scream for attention. It sharpens itself in the dark. It grows in the calm. And when you return from that quiet place, you don't come back softer, you come back smarter. You've refined your instincts, elevated your awareness, and armed yourself with insights. Your silence wasn't a retreat, it was a reset. And that's why you come back different, sharper, colder, wiser. Not because you detached from the world, but because you reconnected with yourself. In a society that panics without noise, your peace is your power. You don't just endure boredom, you turn it into a forge. You don't run from silence, you mine it for strength, and that's the difference. That's why you're never truly behind. You're just waiting, watching, plotting. So when the moment strikes, you don't act out of impulse, you strike with precision. That's not just strategy, that's Sigma. Number 5, you keep your circle tight and your boundaries tighter. You don't need many people, just real ones. That's not just a quote for social media, it's a mindset, a survival code for Sigma males and anyone walking the solitary path of authenticity. See, in a world flooded with noise, validation chasing, and fake connections, a Sigma knows his value doesn't come from how many people are in his corner, but who. He builds tight circles, not big ones. And when someone disrespects the boundaries he's set, the response isn't loud or emotional. It's simple, surgical, and immediate. They're gone, no arguments, no second chances, no dramatic speeches. The person just ceases to exist in his reality, ghosted, deleted, replaced by silence. To outsiders, that might feel cold or ruthless. But to the Sigma, it's math, emotional algebra. You give someone space, trust, and presence. If they cross that line, they subtract themselves from your life. That's the equation. No need for revenge, no need for chaos, just access removed. And this isn't some emotional immaturity or toxic pride. It's actually backed by neuroscience. Studies have shown that setting and enforcing boundaries activates the brain's prefrontal cortex, which is associated with decision-making and self-control. It's a sign of emotional intelligence, not emotional instability. Respect and loyalty aren't freebies in the Sigma's world, they're currencies. And like any currency, they lose value if counterfeits start flooding the system. A Sigma male doesn't tolerate fake respect, that empty politeness people throw around when they want something, nor does he entertain loyalty that only lasts while things are convenient. He observes quietly, gives people rope, and watches what they do with it. If they try to tie him up or hang his trust with it, he walks away. No warnings. Because here's the truth. The world is full of people who test boundaries just to see how far they can push. But a Sigma doesn't play that game. He doesn't yell or beg for decency. He simply exits the room, metaphorically or literally. And the silence that follows, that's not weakness, it's power. It's restraint. It's the mark of someone who has mastered the art of self-respect and doesn't hand it over for cheap. In the end, it's not about having crowds, it's about having clarity. The fewer distractions, the stronger the focus, and the Sigma male lives by one timeless principle. If you can't respect the line, you don't deserve the presence. Number 6, you confuse people, especially women. You're unreadable, not on purpose, it's just who you are. One moment, you're completely present, intense, sharp. A woman feels the full weight of your focus like a spotlight, and for that moment, she's the only thing that matters. But just as quickly, you're gone. Not physically always, but mentally, emotionally, and energetically. No explanation, no drama. You vanish like vapor. And the truth is, it's not some manipulative tactic or calculated power play. It's simply how you protect your energy. You're not designed to be on for everyone. Unlike extroverts who feed off attention or beta males who seek validation, you move through the world like a shadow with intention. You're selective about where you place your focus because you understand that not every interaction deserves your emotional investment. Psychologically, this aligns with what researchers identify as the dismissive avoidant attachment style. a trait often misunderstood but common among highly self-reliant individuals. But for Sigma males, it's not about fear of closeness, it's about conserving power. You don't chase approval or plaster your emotions on your sleeve. You've likely learned through experience that vulnerability must be earned, not handed out like candy. You operate like a cipher, complex, minimalistic, and deeply private. And only those who carry a rare depth of perception can read between your silences and understand your true intentions. This mysterious nature is both a magnet and a maze for women. It disarms them, intrigues them. And yes, sometimes it frustrates them, because most men are predictable. They perform, they showboat, they overshare in hopes of being accepted. But you simply exist, unapologetically, calmly, on your own terms. And that makes you unforgettable. You become the outlier in a world of noise, a quiet force whose absence says more than most men's presence. The fascination with you isn't just emotional, it's neurological. Studies show that unpredictability activates the brain's reward system. The more someone can't quite figure you out, the more addicted they become to trying. In that sense, your detachment becomes the very thing that keeps them coming back. Not for attention, but for understanding, and only a few will ever get close enough to earn it. Number 7, you're quietly building something. While others chase visibility, you chase value. That's the difference between noise and power. In a world obsessed with likes, followers, and being seen, the Sigma male stands apart. Not because he can't be loud, but because he chooses not to be. You don't talk about your grind, you grind. There's no daily update, no need for validation. You study in silence, you work in the shadows. And while the world scrolls endlessly for attention, you sharpen in solitude. This isn't about being antisocial, it's about being intentional. Studies in psychology show that those who work quietly and focus on long-term goals tend to outperform those who constantly seek external recognition. It's a concept known as intrinsic motivation, driven by inner purpose, not public approval. Every move you make is deliberate. There's no randomness here. Like a chess master, you're 10 steps ahead, not because you're flashy, but because you're focused. Your wins? They're quiet, but powerful. Because real success doesn't need to scream. It whispers in the ears of those paying attention and strikes with the weight of momentum. And here's the thing, people won't notice what you're doing, not at first. While they're busy performing for the crowd, you're building something real, something lasting. And then one day the results appear out of nowhere, not because they actually came from nowhere, but because your work was cloaked in silence until the impact became impossible to ignore. It's like thunder on a clear day. Unexpected, undeniable, and unforgettable. That's the Sigma way. No need for applause, no thirst for followers, just vision executed with surgical precision. Sigma males embody the psychological principle of self-determination, the ability to set one's own path regardless of social norms or pressure. It's not rebellion for the sake of rebellion, it's self-reliance in its purest form. You don't need the spotlight because your mission burns brighter than any stage light ever could. While the world shouts for attention, you command respect with results. And when your time comes, and it will, it won't be because you begged to be seen, it'll be because you made yourself undeniable. That's not just success, that's dominance, earned in silence and revealed in force. If these 7 traits resonate with your inner rhythm, if solitude empowers you, if small talk drains you, if you're more focused on personal growth than popularity, then you're not broken, lost, or antisocial. You're simply wired differently. You're not a misfit. You're not detached. You're designed for something beyond the ordinary. Society often misunderstands the Sigma male because he doesn't conform to typical social hierarchies. Unlike the Alpha, who commands the spotlight, or the Beta, who follows, the Sigma moves through life on his own terms, independent, self-reliant, and uninterested in fitting in. He thrives in solitude, not because he hates people, but because his mind is constantly turning over ideas, strategies, and inner truths. Psychologists have noted that individuals with high levels of introspection and autonomy often score differently on personality tests like the Big Five, particularly with low extroversion and high openness to experience. That's not dysfunction, it's distinction. Like the lone wolf, the Sigma doesn't need validation to feel complete. The world may not get him, and that's fine. He doesn't need to be understood. He just needs space to move, to think, to create, and to execute. His silence speaks louder than noise, His vision is focused not on others' expectations, but on his own internal compass. So stay off the radar. Keep your plans quiet. Let your results do the talking. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your distance, your depth, or your discipline. This path may feel isolating at times, but it is the price of freedom. While others chase clout, you're mastering your craft. While they follow trends, you're shaping your legacy. So stay curious, stay grounded, stay Sigma, because you weren't made to blend in. You were made to move in silence and dominate in your own domain. Ever feel like some men were sent by the universe to deliver lessons no one else could? They're not saints, they're not soldiers, they are Sigma males, and they are divine karma messengers in disguise. In a world obsessed with loud leaders and obedient followers, Sigma males walk a third path, alone, observant, and quietly powerful. They're not here to impress, they're here to awaken. Their presence alone can challenge egos, shake illusions, and spark transformation. They often arrive in people's lives like a plot twist, unpredictable, unsettling, and unforgettable. But they don't just appear randomly. These men are guided by something deeper, a calling to correct imbalances, expose truth, and dismantle falsehoods. Whether they know it or not, they carry the energy of cosmic accountability. Their life lessons aren't taught through words, but through experience, through the way they detach, set boundaries, and walk away when dignity is compromised. Psychologists suggest that people with Sigma traits possess a high degree of self-awareness, which makes them resistant to manipulation and groupthink. They're often introverted strategists who read situations before acting. This isn't antisocial behavior, it's evolutionary intelligence. Carl Jung's idea of the individuated self fits the Sigma mold perfectly. These are men who've journeyed inward, faced their shadows, and emerged as whole beings, unbound by social norms. Jung famously said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Sigma males that consciousness. They're the reality check the universe sends when someone's been living in delusion too long. People don't just notice a Sigma male, they him. His silence speaks louder than a room full of noise. His boundaries are firm, not because he hates people, but because he respects himself. Some admire him, others resent him, but no one forgets him. So Sigmas, tighten your emotional armor. What we're about to unpack will show why your energy disrupts fake comfort zones, and why you were never meant to fit in, but to stand out as a force of awakening. Let's get into it. Sign 1. He exposes truth without trying. The Sigma male operates on a frequency that doesn't need amplification. He doesn't waste time trying to convince, correct, or command attention. There's no shouting for respect or grand gestures of dominance. Instead, he carries a quiet intensity that enters a room not like thunder, but like a breeze. Subtle, yet undeniable. And yet this subtlety unleashes something far more powerful than force, a psychological shift. He becomes a walking mirror that reflects back the truth, and people, often unknowingly, begin to unravel in his presence. This unraveling happens because the Sigma male lives in a state of internal alignment, rooted in purpose, clarity, and self-awareness. He's not pretending, he's not seeking approval. And that alone is deeply unsettling in a world where so many thrive on external validation. People who wear masks, who rely on charm, manipulation, or social clout begin to feel exposed around him. Not because he points it out, but because his mere presence forces a confrontation with their own inauthenticity. He doesn't call anyone out. Their own behavior does the talking. Psychologists refer to this as the mirror effect, a phenomenon where emotionally stable individuals unintentionally cause others to reveal their true selves. The Sigma doesn't need to speak. His silence becomes a pressure chamber. And in that silence, people either rise into honesty or collapse into insecurity. While others manipulate through words or posturing, the Sigma influences through energy, composure, and unwavering integrity. This is where the Sigma's role as a divine karma messenger becomes evident. He doesn't act as a judge, but as a presence that accelerates self-realization. Those who walk away feeling shaken weren't harmed by him. They were simply forced to meet a version of themselves they've been avoiding, and in that confrontation lies the beginning of either change or denial. The Sigma male doesn't preach transformation, he's simply the catalyst. Sign 2. He's a natural pattern breaker. In a society driven by the dopamine rush of notifications and public validation, the Sigma male presents a paradox that many find hard to swallow. He doesn't crave attention, he doesn't chase followers, and he certainly doesn't live for likes. While most people are busy building digital altars to their self-worth, carefully curated images, filtered selfies, and strategic captions, he chooses to step away from the game. But this isn't out of contempt or superiority, it's out of self-awareness. The Sigma male knows that external validation is fleeting, unreliable, and ultimately hollow. What he seeks is internal peace, a far rarer currency in today's world. And ironically, that quiet self-assurance becomes the loudest rebellion of all. What makes his stance so unsettling is that it reveals a truth most people avoid, that they, too, could choose freedom, but don't. The Sigma male becomes a mirror, reflecting back the conformity others refuse to acknowledge. His refusal to participate in social hierarchies and his indifference to status or applause expose just how entangled everyone else is. The discomfort doesn't come from what he does, it comes from what he doesn't do. He doesn't play the game, and that challenges those who've built their identity around winning it. His presence reminds people that they always had a choice, that the cage was open all along. And that sting of realization, that's karma. Karma isn't always dramatic or destructive, it's often subtle and surgical. The Sigma male doesn't need to retaliate or prove a point. His mere existence, his choice to live outside of societal expectations, becomes a kind of natural consequence to those stuck inside them. He is a quiet catalyst. He disturbs the status quo not with noise but with stillness. And in that stillness others are forced to face themselves. That's not revenge. It's a revolution in plain sight. Sign 3. His silence is a rebuke. When a Sigma male goes silent, it's not just a personal retreat, it's an act of quiet reckoning. This isn't about avoidance or emotional shutdown. It's a psychological mirror that forces everything hidden to the surface. Unlike the more reactive alpha or the approval-seeking beta, the Sigma male plays by a different set of internal rules. He doesn't need to yell, argue, or defend. He simply removes his presence, his words, his energy, his attention, and in that sudden vacuum, people begin to feel the weight of their own actions. From a behavioral science standpoint, silence is a psychological disruptor. Studies show that when expected communication is withheld, especially during conflict or tension, it often triggers internal discomfort. The human brain is hardwired to interpret silence in social contexts as ambiguous. And ambiguity breeds anxiety. People start filling in the blanks with their own fears, their own guilt. Did I push too hard? Is he angry? What does this mean? That's the Sigma's secret weapon. He says nothing, and yet he says everything. But make no mistake, this isn't manipulation. The Sigma male isn't silent to control others. He's silent because noise doesn't serve him. He's introspective, strategic, and rooted in self-respect. His silence is purposeful. It clears the air, reveals truths, and lets consequences speak without interference. It's an ancient kind of wisdom. Think of spiritual traditions where divine judgment arrived not with thunder but in silence, the kind that demands reflection, not reaction. That's the kind of storm a Sigma male brings. Not loud, not violent, but deeply unsettling. His silence doesn't punish, but it does provoke. And in its eerie stillness, karma begins to stir, realigning things with uncanny precision. In a world addicted to noise, the Sigma male's quiet is his most powerful voice. Sign 4. He attracts broken people looking for a fix. They come like moths to a flame, narcissists, manipulators, and unanchored souls drawn to the quiet intensity of the Sigma male. There's no showmanship, no flashing lights, just a man grounded in who he is, unconcerned with fitting in or chasing validation. His silence isn't awkward, it's powerful. It unsettles people used to noise, ego, and constant distraction. Psychologists have long studied the magnetic pull of calm, self-assured individuals, and the Sigma male fits this mold perfectly. He doesn't seek approval, and that very indifference makes him irresistible to those who are searching for meaning, or worse, someone to exploit. This calm isn't accidental, it's earned. Through years of solitude, self-reflection, and often painful growth, the Sigma builds his internal fortress. His boundaries aren't walls, they're filters. People with hidden agendas quickly find themselves exposed in his presence. Why? Because the Sigma doesn't play emotional games. He forces no one to change, but his mere presence acts as a psychological mirror. Studies show that people are uncomfortable around those who reflect back their insecurities, and the Sigma's groundedness does exactly that. It's not that he heals others directly, it's that he unintentionally triggers the healing or destruction process within them. But here's the twist. Those who try to leech this energy without doing their own inner work run into something bigger than the Sigma himself: universal justice. Call it karma, call it divine order, but nature has a way of recalibrating imbalance. When manipulators try to tap into the peace a Sigma fought to earn, that imbalance sets off consequences. The Sigma doesn't retaliate. He doesn't need to. The universe does the correcting. His silence becomes a sentence. His stillness becomes a storm for those who pretended they were whole. And when the dust settles, it's clear. Some evolved because of him and others were exposed. Sign 5, he doesn't retaliate, he disappears. Here's the scary part. When a Sigma male gets hurt or disrespected, he doesn't scream, plot revenge, or make a dramatic exit. He just vanishes, quietly, effortlessly. But his silence is louder than any confrontation. Sigma males operate on a frequency most people don't understand until it's too late. They're not driven by ego or drama. They're driven by self-respect and emotional intelligence. So when they walk away, it's not about punishment, it's about preservation. The moment they're gone, their absence hits with the force of a thunderbolt. People who once depended on them for validation, support, or emotional balance suddenly find themselves unplugged from their invisible life source. Sigma males often act like emotional mirrors, reflecting people's behavior back to them, offering insight without judgment. They're the quiet observers who listen more than they speak, but when they speak, it hits deep. They're also the ones others secretly rely on, the confidants, the stabilizers, the ones who don't ask for much but give plenty. So when they withdraw, it creates a sudden vacuum. Those who mistreated or underestimated them are left staring at their own reflection, and it's not a pretty sight. What remains in the wake of a Sigma's departure isn't just silence, it's a haunting emptiness. Guilt creeps in, regret begins to whisper. People start to realize they've lost someone who never needed them, but whom they desperately needed. This is the cold hand of karma, not fiery, not vengeful, but chilling and unrelenting. The Sigma male doesn't destroy, he reveals. He leaves people to confront their own darkness without saying a word. And that, ironically, is the most devastating revenge of all. Sign 6. He disrupts toxic systems without lifting a finger. Put a Sigma in a corrupt workplace, watch things unravel, place him in a dishonest friend group. Secrets start surfacing. It's not magic, it's not even intentional. The Sigma male's mere presence has the uncanny ability to disrupt toxicity like a storm system moving through a polluted sky. You see, Sigmas operate on a frequency that rejects anything inauthentic. They don't gossip, they don't suck up to power, they don't play politics. And in environments built on manipulation, that kind of quiet integrity isn't just noticeable, it's threatening. A Sigma male doesn't need to raise his voice or call people out. He simply observes, questions, and holds a mirror to the system without even trying. People around him begin to feel exposed. The ones with skeletons in their closets start sweating. Because the Sigma isn't just a man, he's an energetic audit. Like a spiritual X-ray machine, he shines light into dark corners, and not because he's trying to be a hero. He's just being real in a world that's forgotten what that looks like. Psychologically speaking, this aligns with what's known as the observer effect in social dynamics. People behave differently when they sense they're being watched or measured against an unspoken moral standard. That's what the Sigma does. He embodies a personal code so strong that others instinctively sense the contrast between their facade and his authenticity. And the aftermath, it varies. Some people become inspired, others become defensive. But one thing is certain. After a Sigma male enters a room, it's never the same again. Truth gets uncomfortable, lies get shaky, and all the masks, they start to fall. Not because he demands it, but because his silence speaks louder than their performance. Sign 7, he lives untouched by envy and it destroys egos. While everyone else is playing the exhausting game of comparison, counting likes, flaunting titles, and measuring success by applause and external validation, Sigma males are out there chasing something far more powerful: purpose. They don't need a spotlight to shine. They don't seek permission to exist loudly. In fact, the less attention they get, the more they seem to thrive. And strangely enough, that quiet confidence drives others insane. You see, in a world wired for social approval, someone who opts out of the rat race becomes a mirror. The Sigma male becomes a silent challenge to everyone obsessed with status. His indifference isn't just cool, it's revolutionary. While others scramble to prove their worth through possessions, promotions, or public praise, the Sigma simply walks a different path. That path exposes just how fragile most people's sense of self truly is. This isn't passive behavior, this is strategic, even sacred. It's divine psychological warfare. By refusing to be trapped in the web of societal expectations, Sigma males force others to confront the emptiness of their pursuits. Studies in psychology suggest that people derive self-worth from social comparison. When that comparison fails, when someone doesn't care to play the game, it causes cognitive dissonance. People feel threatened. They feel judged even when the Sigma says nothing at all. That's the secret weapon, silence with substance. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. Sigmas live with intention, grounded not in applause, but in meaning. And in doing so, they disturb the very foundation of a world obsessed with ego. His calm becomes unsettling, his focus disruptive, his distance a statement. And while the world watches, puzzled and provoked, the Sigma just keeps walking, unbothered, undistracted, and untouchably free. Sign 8, he inspires transformation through discomfort. People around Sigma males often undergo subtle but powerful transformations, and not by choice. It's not about impressing the Sigma, and it's certainly not because he demands anything out loud. Instead, it's his mere presence that shifts the atmosphere. You see, Sigma males carry an energy that cuts through pretense like a blade through silk. They don't chase approval, don't pander to crowds, and don't tolerate inauthenticity. And that in itself becomes an unspoken challenge to everyone in their orbit. Be real or be gone. Unlike alpha males who dominate with volume and command, Sigmas influenced by stillness and truth. Their silence is unnerving for the fake and empowering for the genuine. Just being near a Sigma can feel like standing in front of a mirror that shows your flaws, fears, and facade. It doesn't matter how well someone fakes confidence or kindness, Sigmas see straight through it. That's why people often feel either exposed or inspired in their presence. There's no middle ground. Psychologically, this effect can be attributed to what is known as self-concept clarity. Sigmas tend to have a strong, stable sense of who they are, which naturally confronts those who don't. It's why people either rise to the occasion or retreat entirely. That tension, that discomfort, that's not arrogance, that's karmic friction. It's life's way of using the Sigma as a tool to shake loose what no longer belongs in someone's character. In that way, Sigmas are like a pruning blade, sharp, silent, and necessary. Not because they intend to cut, but because growth requires shedding. So when you meet one, don't be surprised if your mask slips. The Sigma didn't ask you to change. He just made it impossible for you to keep pretending. Sign 9, he's protected in mysterious ways. You ever notice how Sigmas walk through storms untouched? It's not magic, it's mastery. These lone wolves don't just survive chaos, they transcend it. While others crumble under pressure, the Sigma male moves through conflict like a ghost, observing, adapting, and outsmarting. People will gossip behind his back, try to sabotage his reputation, and set traps, hoping he'll fall. But he doesn't fall. He rises. Every time, stronger, sharper, not because he's invincible, but because he's intentional. Sigmas know that storms aren't meant to break them. They're designed to reveal them. You see, in the ancient laws of karma, justice isn't just about retribution. It's also about divine protection. Sigma males live with a rare authenticity, and the universe recognizes that. It backs them up like unseen armor, not because they're perfect, but because they're purpose-driven. That calm, quiet detachment they carry isn't weakness. It's spiritual clarity. They're not out to seek revenge or prove themselves to anyone. Their only competition is the man in the mirror. So when chaos comes, it doesn't destroy them, it refines them. And the very people who tried to bring them down end up watching, bewildered, as he emerges from the ashes, not just untouched, but transformed. That's karma at work. That's the Sigma code. Sign 10, he's a reminder of what you could be. Here's the raw truth. A Sigma male doesn't haunt people with loud words or dramatic exits. He haunts them with his presence, subtle, calm, but deeply unsettling. Not because he's aggressive, but because he represents everything most people are too afraid to become. In a world addicted to validation, masks, and social performance, the Sigma stands as a living contradiction. He doesn't need a crowd to feel valuable. He doesn't compromise himself to fit in. That quiet confidence, it rattles people, because deep down it reminds them of the freedom they gave up. He is living proof that authenticity is not only possible, it's powerful, that you can find peace not in being liked, but in being real. And that's what truly stings. See, karma doesn't always show up like a storm. Sometimes it slips in silently, unbothered, dressed in black, sipping coffee, and paying no one any mind. That's when the damage is done. It's the internal confrontation people face when they see someone living the life they secretly want but were too scared to chase. Sigma males don't seek revenge. They're the consequence. Their mere existence is often the final chapter in someone else's story of false identity. So, Sigmas, never doubt your role in this world. You don't need loud speeches or dramatic actions to make an impact. In fact, your silence often speaks louder than words. Your calm demeanor isn't weakness. It's precision, a quiet storm that unsettles those who thrive on chaos. Your very existence challenges norms and disrupts systems that rely on conformity. That's not by accident. That's divine karma in motion, an invisible force balancing scales without a single shout. While others chase applause, you let your lifestyle speak for itself. Keep walking that lone but purposeful path. The world doesn't just notice, it realigns. Stay sharp, stay Sigma. Every woman's eyes on you, even when you said nothing. That wasn't luck. That was presence. That quiet, magnetic energy that speaks louder than words. Without uttering a single sentence, Sigma males dominate the room. It's not some secret spell or flashy performance, it's authenticity. And in today's world, full of curated personas and loud noise, authenticity is revolutionary. You don't need loud charm, a flashy watch, or a million followers to be irresistible. In fact, the most magnetic man is the one who doesn't try at all. That's the Sigma. He doesn't seek approval, he doesn't beg for attention. Instead, he commands it through quiet confidence, emotional intelligence, and razor-sharp self-awareness. The Sigma male doesn't conform to traditional social hierarchies. He lives outside them, choosing independence over popularity and depth over surface. And women, they notice. Subconsciously, they're drawn to these traits because they signal strength, mystery, and self-sufficiency, qualities rooted in evolutionary psychology. A 2010 study from the University of British Columbia found that women are more attracted to men who appear proud, brooding, or even slightly withdrawn over those who are overly cheerful and expressive. Why? Because those traits imply capability, dominance, and emotional control, things our biology still responds to on a primal level. Today, we're unpacking 7 irresistible Sigma male traits that women can't resist, and why they can't help but be drawn to these lone wolves. From unshakable independence to emotional detachment that hints at deep inner strength, Sigma males possess a unique frequency that stands out in a world of noise. This isn't about manipulation or playing games, it's about mindset. It's about understanding your value, protecting your energy, and mastering your presence. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And Sigmas? They're already walking that path. Their magnetism doesn't come from trying to be liked, it comes from being real, being whole, and being unapologetically themselves. So buckle up, Sigmas, let's dive in. Trait 1, unapologetic independence. Sigmas move like they don't need anyone, and that's exactly why everyone wants them. It's a paradox that defines their magnetism. You see, independence in a Sigma male isn't just about living solo or avoiding commitment. It's a deeper, almost spiritual form of self-sufficiency. They aren't running from connection. They're rooted in their own sense of identity, mission, and value. That's rare in a world where most people crave external validation, and women, they notice, they feel it. That lack of neediness doesn't come off as cold, it comes off as confident. No over-texting, no seeking approval, just a calm, grounded presence that says, "I'm here because I want to be, not because I need to be." Psychologically, this is called secure detachment. It's a trait that highly independent personalities like Sigmas exhibit. Studies in behavioral science have shown that emotional self-sufficiency can be incredibly attractive, especially in dating dynamics. Why? Because it communicates high value. When someone is clearly okay on their own, it suggests they've got options, and that triggers something primal. It's like emotional supply and demand. Scarcity makes something more desirable. And when a Sigma male says, "I'm good either way," he means it. That's not game. It's clarity. He knows what he brings to the table and doesn't hinge his identity on being accepted or rejected. That's intimidating and alluring all at once. Emotional detachment doesn't mean he's numb, it just means he's not desperate. That balanced energy draws people in, especially women who are tired of emotional chaos. Humor break? Picture this. A Sigma gets invited to a party. Everyone's excited. People are texting, hyping it up. But guess what? He ghosts it before he even arrives. Not because he's antisocial, but because halfway through putting on his shoes, he realizes he'd rather spend the evening building something, reading something, or simply enjoying his own thoughts. Independence? Check. Time efficiency? Double check. That's the Sigma way, unapologetically selective with time, energy, and emotion. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. And in a world overflowing with noise, that kind of self-contained calm stands out like a lighthouse in a storm. Trait 2, mysterious aura. Let's be real. Women love a mystery. It's not just a cliche, it's psychology. Humans are naturally drawn to puzzles, and Sigma males are walking enigmas. While most guys are quick to spill their entire life story over a few texts, hoping to impress or build instant intimacy, Sigmas move differently. They operate with restraint. Every word, every story, every detail is earned, not dumped. It's like watching a slow-burn Netflix series where the main character reveals himself one episode at a time. There's something magnetic about a man who doesn't feel the need to narrate his entire past on the first date. This deliberate pacing creates anticipation. It keeps her mentally engaged, emotionally curious, and romantically hooked. She begins to read between the lines, picking up on his silences, his gaze, his energy. And just when she thinks she's got him all figured out, boom, he shifts. He reveals a new layer, an unexpected perspective, a hidden passion. That unpredictability isn't confusion, it's charisma. The science of attraction confirms that unpredictability increases dopamine in the brain, the same chemical associated with pleasure and reward. In short, mystery makes things exciting, and Sigmas know how to harness that. But here's the twist. Being mysterious isn't about playing games or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about self-respect. It's the unshakable confidence of a man who knows his worth. He doesn't offer it up like a discount sale. He lets people access to his inner world. And that energy, it's rare. Because in a world full of oversharers and approval seekers, the Sigma stands out by simply being selective. This doesn't make him cold, it makes him captivating. He's not detached, just disciplined. He's not secretive, just sovereign, and the result is powerful. He becomes the man who commands attention without demanding it, the man who inspires curiosity, not because he's trying, but because he's living with intentional mystery. Trait 3, laser-sharp purpose. Nothing turns heads like a man who knows exactly where he's going. There's something profoundly magnetic about a man who walks with certainty, not because he's showing off, but because he knows who he is and what he stands for. This is the essence of the Sigma male. Sigmas don't drift aimlessly through life. They move with a clear direction, guided not by trends or public approval, but by a deeply rooted sense of purpose. They're not chasing after social validation or fleeting fame. They're building something that lasts. While others are busy clamoring for attention, showing off on social media, or trying to keep up with the noise of the world, the Sigma is building silently, letting results do the talking. This is a man with a mission, and that mission defines him. And here's where science backs it up. Psychological studies show that people are naturally drawn to individuals who exhibit goal-directed behavior. It's called the goal gradient effect. The closer someone appears to be to achieving a meaningful goal, the more compelling they become to others. In the Sigma's case, his clarity and self-direction make him irresistibly attractive. Women in particular find this energy alluring, not because he's trying to impress them, but because he doesn't need to. His focus becomes a gravitational pull. It communicates discipline, strength, and self-respect. These are not just personality traits, they're signals of leadership, of a man who can build and sustain a vision. And here's the motivational gem. When you build your life like it's your empire, others will want to be part of it. You become the architect of something bigger than yourself, a legacy, a standard, a movement. People don't just follow men with money or looks, they follow men with momentum. And the Sigma's momentum doesn't come from outside forces. It comes from within. His ambition isn't noisy, it's quiet, relentless, and unstoppable. That's what turns heads. That's what earns respect, because a man with purpose doesn't need permission to lead. He already is. Trait 4, silent confidence. Confidence doesn't always shout. Sometimes it doesn't need to enter a room with fireworks or announce itself with loud declarations. That's the essence of the Sigma male. The man who doesn't seek validation, attention, or praise, yet commands all three without lifting a finger. Sigmas don't brag about their achievements. They don't feel the need to broadcast their ambitions or flaunt their lifestyle. Instead, they move through life with quiet determination and a calm, almost mysterious energy. It's not arrogance, it's certainty. They walk like they've already won the war, not because they're better than everyone else, but because they've made peace with who they are. That's real confidence. Psychologically, this kind of self-assured behavior has a magnetic pull, especially when it comes to how women perceive it. Studies in evolutionary psychology have shown that women are instinctively drawn to men who display traits of competence, control, and emotional stability. These aren't men who desperately chase attention or validation. Instead, they radiate a sense of internal security. This is because such traits subconsciously signal a man's ability to protect, provide, and lead, a primal cue that still influences attraction today. In a noisy world filled with overcompensation and performative masculinity, the Sigma's quiet confidence is like a breath of fresh air. It signals strength without aggression, leadership without dominance, and security without neediness. Here's the kicker. When you're truly confident, you don't have to prove it to anyone. You don't need the flashy car, the loud voice, or the constant social media updates. And paradoxically, the moment you stop trying to impress women is the exact moment they become most impressed. That's because authenticity is rare and irresistibly attractive. Women can feel when a man is at ease with himself, when he moves with purpose, and when he listens more than he speaks. Confidence that isn't worn like armor, but lived like truth, is not only powerful, it's unforgettable. It makes you stand out without trying. That's the Sigma edge. Trait 5, emotional mastery. Ever seen a Sigma lose his cool in public? Probably not. That's because emotional control is one of his deadliest weapons. In a world that often rewards loud voices and emotional outbursts, the Sigma male stands apart by staying composed. No matter the storm, emotional control isn't just about suppressing anger or hiding feelings. It's about mastering them. It's about knowing when to speak, when to stay silent, and how to remain grounded even when everyone else is spiraling. Women respect this trait deeply. Emotional restraint doesn't come off as cold or detached. It radiates maturity, inner strength, and a sense of leadership. It tells people that this man doesn't need to prove himself with drama. He doesn't need to dominate a conversation or react explosively to make a point. Instead, his presence speaks louder than his emotions. Psychology backs this up. Studies have shown that individuals who exhibit higher emotional regulation are often perceived as more attractive, reliable, and competent. For Sigma males, this trait isn't a tactic, it's a way of life. Take this fun example. While everyone else is passionately arguing about politics over a family dinner, tossing opinions like grenades across the table, the Sigma is quietly cutting his steak, enjoying every bite, and smiling at the absurdity around him. He doesn't need to jump into every debate. He doesn't seek validation through conflict. He simply exists in his own world, unbothered, unmoved, undefeated. And that energy, it's magnetic. Women notice it. They remember the man who didn't flinch, who didn't take the bait, who stayed calm while the room burned with tension. Being the calm in the chaos is a form of silent power. It signals that you're not ruled by emotions, you rule them. And in a society that often confuses loudness with confidence, the Sigma's quiet command becomes unforgettable. His emotional control is not weakness, it's discipline, it's patience, and it's wisdom. That's why, when others are remembered for what they shouted, the Sigma is remembered for how he remained still. Trait 6, authenticity without apology. You know what never goes out of style? Being real. In a world that's constantly pushing people to fit into boxes, follow trends, and filter their lives to perfection, the Sigma male stands apart by doing something incredibly rare. He shows up as himself. No filters, no pretenses, no performance, just raw, unapologetic authenticity. This isn't just a quirk, It's a silent rebellion against everything fake. But even more than that, it's alignment. Alignment with who he is, what he believes, and how he chooses to live. And believe it or not, this kind of radical honesty is magnetic, especially to women. Why? Because most people are tired of masks. Think about how much of our lives are spent online, scrolling through airbrushed perfection. We live in a digital age where authenticity has become a novelty. Women, just like men, are constantly bombarded with inauthentic connections, half-truths, and people pretending to be something they're not. So when a Sigma walks into the room with that calm, grounded energy that says it disrupts the norm, it gets noticed. It creates a ripple. He becomes a rare find in a sea of scripted personalities. Now here's the kicker. Being real doesn't mean being liked by everyone. In fact, the truth often offends those who are comfortable with lies. People might misunderstand a Sigma, they might even reject him. But the ones who matter, the ones who are awake enough to see through the noise, they'll never forget him. Because there's something unforgettable about someone who doesn't bend to fit your expectations, but instead stands tall in their own truth. It's not just about dating or attraction, it's about energy. Realness carries a certain vibration. Psychological studies show that people are instinctively drawn to those who are congruent, that is, their actions match their words and their identity feels consistent. This builds trust, and trust is the foundation of every meaningful connection. So while trends may come and go and fakeness might win temporary applause, authenticity always wins the long game. The Sigma male knows this. He's not trying to impress. He's simply living in truth, and that right there is the most attractive quality of all. Trait 7, selective attention. This one's subtle, but savage. Sigma males have mastered the art of selective attention. They don't dish it out freely like candy on Halloween. Their time, energy, and presence are premium. And in a world that's constantly loud, always online, and begging for validation, that kind of restraint becomes magnetic. When a Sigma locks in and chooses to focus on someone, it's not by accident. It's not because he's bored or just scrolling through life. No, it's intentional, and you can feel it. It's the kind of presence that makes someone stop and wonder, why me? That's where the power lies. Because psychologically, we crave what is rare. The principle of scarcity isn't just for economics, it applies to human behavior too. Studies in social psychology show that we're wired to place a higher value on what is less accessible. When a Sigma male doesn't make himself available to just anyone, his attention becomes a reward, not a given. Women sense this immediately. Unlike the guy who's always texting back within seconds or liking every post out of habit, the Sigma holds back. Not to play games, but because he's not easily impressed. And that makes others want to impress him. It's that energy shift that builds desire. A Sigma doesn't announce his interest with flashy gestures or over-the-top compliments. He simply observes, speaks when it matters, and offers his presence like a king offering a rare audience. It turns heads without him even trying. Women pick up on the fact that his approval must be earned, and that creates curiosity, followed by the urge to prove themselves worthy of that attention. Want to drive that same kind of mystery and appeal? Don't be available 24/7. Don't constantly post, reply, or react. Instead, refine your focus. Save your energy for people and projects that matter. Be rare, be intentional, be present. But only when it counts. That's not just confidence, that's strategy. And it's exactly why Sigma males remain unforgettable. So there you have it, Sigmas. 7 undeniable reasons why you don't need to chase, impress, or beg for validation from anyone, especially not women. The truth is, when you cultivate these core traits, you stop being part of the crowd. You, the standard, you stop being the man who waits for approval and start becoming the force that shifts the entire dynamic of the room. You don't have to seek the spotlight, it naturally follows you. But let's make one thing clear. These traits aren't tricks or surface-level hacks. They're deeply rooted in psychology and self-mastery. Take independence, for example. It's not about isolating yourself from the world, but about being grounded in your identity, making decisions from a place of strength, not insecurity. Studies have shown that women are naturally drawn to men who are secure in themselves, who don't rely on constant validation. That's biology, not bravado. Your mission, then, is not to pretend. Don't mimic confidence. Build it. Don't fake self-respect. Live it. because the world is already overflowing with carbon copy influencers, parroting charisma and chasing clout. What's rare, what's needed is authenticity. A man who stands firm in silence, who acts with purpose, and who knows that solitude is not loneliness, but power. And to the women watching, you feel it, don't you? There's an energy you can't quite explain. A Sigma man doesn't demand attention, he draws it without trying. You can sense his calm, his focus, his edge. So if this message struck a chord, Sigmas, hit that like button, subscribe and join the movement. We're building a tribe of grounded, intentional men who master themselves, live with conviction, and leave an undeniable impact on the world. She tested his patience one too many times, now the mask is off. What happens when a Sigma male, known for his calm and quiet demeanor, decides he's done playing nice? When a Sigma stops tolerating nonsense, the world finally sees the storm he's been hiding in silence. Sigmas, welcome. Today's topic is, when a Sigma male is done playing nice, here's what happens. Let's break this down. Sigma males are often misunderstood. They're not aloof because they lack emotion. They're observant, calculating, and intentional. According to psychologist John A. Johnson, introverted yet confident personalities tend to be more emotionally intelligent and self-regulated. This is the essence of the Sigma. A Sigma's tolerance isn't a sign of weakness, it's strategy. He picks his battles, avoids unnecessary drama, and lives by his own code. But once that code is violated too many times, whether through manipulation, disrespect, or betrayal, he shifts gears. And no, it's not some theatrical meltdown, it's subtle but surgical. The Sigma detaches, he stops engaging, he doesn't shout, he exits. This silence speaks louder than words. That's when people feel the weight of his absence. This transformation is often mistaken for coldness. In reality, it's power. When a Sigma stops being nice, he starts being real, asserting boundaries, saying no without guilt, and walking away without looking back. It's not revenge, it's recalibration. And the ripple effect, massive. People who took his patience for granted suddenly scramble for his attention. Toxic individuals are cut off. His energy gets redirected toward personal growth, financial goals, and mastery. This isn't about ego, it's about reclaiming peace. So if you've pushed a Sigma too far, don't expect a warning shot. Expect silence. And that silence is where his power lives. He doesn't need to prove himself to anyone, he simply disappears and levels up. Point 1, the silent build-up. When most people get disrespected, they bark, they raise their voices, clap back, argue, or storm out. It's an emotional reaction, a primal defense against perceived threat, but not Sigma males. When Sigmas get disrespected, they don't bark, they watch. And they wait. You see, the Sigma male operates on a different wavelength. He's not interested in winning petty arguments or putting on a performance to show dominance. Instead, his reaction is internal and strategic. He observes behavior, registers inconsistencies, and silently recalibrates how he engages with you. This isn't passivity, it's power under control. Psychologically speaking, Sigma males embody traits of high emotional intelligence and restraint. According to a 2009 study published in Individuals with High Emotional Self-Regulation tend to perform better in social conflict resolution, not by confrontation, but by managing their own impulses and gathering information. That's what Sigmas do. They don't need the last word. They want the response at the right time. In fact, their silence is often mistaken for weakness. People assume that if someone doesn't fight back immediately, they're submissive or afraid, but Sigmas don't care about your assumptions. What you're actually witnessing is their testing phase. They're analyzing. Was that disrespect a slip-up or a pattern? Was it rooted in insecurity, or is it a sign of disloyalty? While others are busy yelling, the Sigma is taking notes. And then comes the twist. You never know what chapter of their story you're in until they shut the book. That's when the Sigma disappears, disconnects, or redefines the entire dynamic. No drama, no speeches, just silence and absence. And by the time you realize what happened, it's already too late. What makes this response so effective? It's the embodiment of the principle, don't tell them them. Sigmas withdraw their energy and access, two things people often don't realize they relied on until it's gone. This approach mirrors Stoic teachings from philosophers like Epictetus, who said it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. That's a Sigma's secret, calculated restraint. So the next time a Sigma gets disrespected and doesn't respond, Don't assume it's because he didn't notice. He noticed. He just doesn't need to make noise, because while others are still shouting on the surface, the Sigma is preparing a move beneath it all, quietly, purposefully, and with full awareness of the cost and outcome. It's not weakness, it's war, played in silence. Point 2, the cold withdrawal. Here's the twist. When a grand speech, no dramatic exit, just silence. And that's exactly what makes it so unnerving. Most people need closure. They argue, they beg, they fire off long texts, hoping to be heard. But a Sigma male, he vanishes without a ripple. 1 minute you're in his world, the next it's like you never existed. No drama, no confrontation, just gone. This isn't avoidance, it's resolution. Sigma males are emotionally detached once they reach their threshold. They don't erupt in rage or chase explanations. Why? Because long before you ever noticed something was wrong, they already did their internal audit. Quietly, logically, weeks or months in advance. By the time they walk away, the emotional processing is complete. What you're witnessing isn't a reaction, it's execution. That's why it stings. It's not messy, it's clean. It doesn't feed your ego with a final fight or give you the satisfaction of closure. And that's where Sigma males gain the upper hand. When someone storms off in anger, they still want you to chase. But when someone disappears in silence, that's when you know they've truly let go. Psychologists call this silent boundary enforcement. It's a self-protective behavior seen in highly independent and introverted individuals, those who prefer peace over chaos. Studies on conflict resolution confirm this. People who score high on self-reliance and introversion are more likely to walk away from conflict instead of engaging in it. It's not passive-aggressive, it's deliberate and final. Sigma males don't ghost out of fear, they disengage when something violates their values or peace. And the wild part, they don't seek closure from anyone but themselves. They don't need apologies or understanding to move on. They just decide. Their silence becomes a mirror, forcing others to confront what they've done, not because they're told to, but because the sudden absence is deafening. That's the Sigma power. When they close the book, they never reopen it. Point 3, the shift in energy. Sigmas don't chase, they replace. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. Sigma males are wired differently. When something or someone disrupts their peace, they don't explode. They evolve. The moment a Sigma stops playing nice, it's like a switch flips. Instead of wasting energy on explaining themselves, proving their worth, or begging for basic respect, they go silent. But don't mistake that silence for weakness. It's the sound of a storm forming beneath the surface. Sigmas redirect their energy inward. They level up, whether it's hitting the gym, starting a new business, mastering a skill, or diving into solitude and reflection. They begin to rebuild from the inside out. Psychology calls this the ability to respond to stress, not with breakdown, but with growth. While others post online to prove a point, the Sigma disappears from the noise. Behind the scenes, he's grinding, quietly, consistently, strategically, and here's where the shift happens. Ex-friends start to feel the void. That calm, grounded presence they once took for granted, gone. And in its place, a gnawing realization they underestimated him. Toxic people feel exposed. Why? Because without the Sigma's energy to manipulate or guilt trip, their games no longer work. The spotlight turns inward, revealing their own dysfunction. Meanwhile, the Sigma doesn't feel anger, regret, or revenge. He feels focus. Neuroscience supports this too. When someone is highly self-regulated and goal-oriented, their prefrontal cortex activates more intensely, heightening discipline and decision-making. And here's the kicker. That quiet intensity, it becomes magnetic. Without chasing anyone, the Sigma starts attracting everything. People notice his absence, and more importantly, his glow-up. What once seemed like detachment is now clearly strength. What seemed passive is now power in motion. This is the Sigma blueprint. Don't chase, don't beg, just rise and replace. Because when a Sigma male is done playing nice, the world doesn't just miss him, it watches him ascend. Point 4, the domino effect on others. When a Sigma stops playing nice, it doesn't just cause ripples, it sends shockwaves through the emotional ecosystem of everyone who once underestimated him. You see, Sigma males operate differently. They're not driven by a need for approval, validation, or applause. They move quietly, observe intently, and act only when necessary. But when that calm presence suddenly goes cold, it flips the psychological script for those around them. People start overthinking, second-guessing every moment. Was I the problem? Why did he cut me off? Why isn't he reacting? This isn't just drama, it's cognitive dissonance. Psychologically, humans are wired to seek closure. When we don't get a reaction from someone we expect to engage, our brains go into overdrive trying to solve the silence. It's called the Zeigarnik effect, a phenomenon where people remember uncompleted or interrupted interactions more vividly than completed ones. So when a Sigma walks away without fanfare, it triggers emotional turmoil in those who never expected consequences. And the most unsettling part, the Sigma doesn't explain, he doesn't lash out, he doesn't beg, plead, or even clarify. His silence, it's a mirror, a confrontation not with him, but with oneself. His absence becomes louder than most people's presence. Why? Because we tend to undervalue quiet strength until it's gone. Most people are used to noise, attention-seeking, emotional outbursts. But when someone who used to listen, tolerate, and show restraint suddenly withdraws that energy, the emotional vacuum becomes undeniable. It's like removing the anchor from a ship. It starts drifting, lost and directionless. And here's the kicker. Sigmas don't withdraw to punish others. They do it to protect their peace. When respect is lost, tolerance has limits. When boundaries are crossed, the Sigma doesn't escalate. He evaporates. This is where power lies. Not in loud confrontation, but in silent transformation. So when a Sigma male stops playing nice, it's not revenge, it's a reset. He's reminding everyone that his calm demeanor was a choice, not a weakness. And now that the mask is off, the emotional economy collapses for those who thought they'd never have to pay for their actions. Because the Sigma's silence, it says everything they refused to hear when he was still speaking. Point 5, the birth of a new era. Here's the beautiful part. When a Sigma walks away from nonsense, he's not just making an exit, he's making an upgrade. See, most people think walking away is a sign of weakness or avoidance, but for the Sigma male, it's the complete opposite. It's a conscious decision to evolve. When he cuts ties with people, it's never impulsive or emotional. He's not ghosting for the sake of drama. He's pruning his environment. And what he's really cutting off, old patterns, toxic habits, and self-imposed limitations that no longer serve him. This isn't about being cold. It's about being clear. Clarity becomes the Sigma's new compass. It directs him away from distractions and toward direction. Science even backs this idea. Studies in behavioral psychology show that removing negative influences from your life can significantly boost focus, self-control, and emotional resilience. And that's exactly what the Sigma is after. He begins redirecting his energy toward higher pursuits, physical health, mental discipline, and long-term goals. He's not lounging in the silence, he's working in it. Gym sessions replace gossip. Early mornings replace late-night regrets, books replace arguments, and with every passing day he sharpens his tools, his intellect, his emotional control, his instincts. He upgrades his environment, mindset, and mission. This rebirth is quiet, but it's revolutionary. Think of it like a software update. The outer appearance doesn't change much, but inside he's faster, smarter, more resilient. He no longer bends for approval. He no longer negotiates his value. He no longer explains his peace. In psychology, this kind of transformation is known as a radical self-realignment, a powerful shift where an individual rewires their habits and identity to align with their highest potential. And that's what the Sigma male does when he walks away from nonsense. He evolves. He levels up. He becomes a man of intention, no longer shaped by the world around him, but by the clarity within him. Point 6, the unapologetic standards. When Sigmas stop playing nice, they don't make a loud announcement. They don't throw a tantrum. They simply, quietly, powerfully, and with intention. What does that mean? It means they start enforcing standards without saying a single word. No debates, no justifications, no emotional outbursts. They stop laughing at jokes they don't find funny. They stop showing up for people who don't show up for them. They stop responding to texts that feel forced, superficial, or manipulative. It's not anger, it's alignment. You see, Sigma males operate on an internal code. They're introspective, self-aware, and deeply observant. Psychology calls this trait high self-monitoring, the ability to read social cues without being controlled by them. When Sigmas decide they're done entertaining flaky people, fake intentions, or empty conversations, they don't burn bridges. They just stop building them. And this scares people. Why? Because most people are used to boundaries being loud, dramatic, and followed by explanations. But Sigma boundaries are different. They're invisible walls, firm, quiet, and absolute. No, hey, I don't like that. No, here's why I'm distancing myself. Just silence, detachment, distance, and that silence is deafening. Studies in behavioral psychology show that unpredictability and lack of closure can cause more anxiety than open conflict. When someone suddenly stops responding or pulls back without a word, it creates confusion. People don't know whether they've been judged, ignored, or outgrown. And for many, that uncertainty is unbearable. But for a Sigma, it's not about punishing others. It's about protecting peace. He aligns with his values, and if someone doesn't fit that frequency, he quietly exits. No drama, no guilt, just growth. This is why Sigmas are often misunderstood. Their silence is mistaken for arrogance. Their absence is mistaken for coldness, but in reality they're simply focused on truth, authenticity, and energy that feels right. So when a Sigma stops playing nice, don't look for signs of rage. Look for signs of resolve. He's not lashing out, he's leveling up. And the world, especially the people who used to take his kindness for granted, can feel the shift, even if they can't explain it. That's the Sigma way. Quiet, calculated, unapologetically real. Point 7, the untouchable mindset. When a Sigma male is done playing nice, something profound happens. He becomes untouchable. Not in the sense of arrogance or superiority, but in a way that reflects deep clarity and emotional mastery. This transformation is rooted in psychology, stoicism, and lived experience. Let's break it down. First, understand that Sigma males are lone wolves, independent thinkers who don't crave social approval, but even they can be pushed too far. When that threshold is crossed, a mental switch flips. The Sigma detaches, not out of bitterness, but out of necessity. He's done explaining himself, done tolerating manipulation, done entertaining emotional chaos. Manipulation tactics, whether it's gaslighting, guilt-tripping, or passive aggressiveness, lose their power over him. Why? Because he no longer reacts. Reaction is fuel for manipulation, and he's pulled the plug. This is supported by the concept of emotional detachment in psychology, a skill often taught in therapy to help individuals maintain boundaries and reduce emotional burnout. The Sigma embodies this skill naturally. Guilt trips? Denied. He doesn't let others weaponize his empathy anymore. Instead of feeling guilty for choosing peace, he sees it as self-respect. That shift may unsettle those who once relied on his people-pleasing nature, but it's a necessary evolution. Validation-seeking becomes irrelevant. He no longer needs applause or external approval to feel worthy. According to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, self-actualization sits at the top. This is where the Sigma now operates. His sense of identity is internal, not defined by others. And perhaps the most important shift, he's now mission-driven. Everything he does is intentional, whether it's building a business, improving himself, or simply enjoying solitude. He's laser-focused. He's not avoiding emotions, he's just prioritizing purpose. This detachment makes him powerful and a bit unsettling. People sense the change. The once agreeable Sigma is now cool, measured, and unshakable. He's no longer a safety net for others' dysfunction. He's not cruel, just clear. And clarity, that's scary for those who can't control it. So when a Sigma male is done playing nice, it's not a declaration of war, it's a quiet revolution. He didn't become heartless, he became free. Point 8. The world finally takes notice. When a Sigma male is done playing nice, something profound happens. He becomes untouchable. Not in the sense of arrogance or superiority, but in a way that reflects deep clarity and emotional mastery. This transformation is rooted in psychology, stoicism, and lived experience. Let's break it down. First, understand that Sigma males are lone wolves, independent thinkers who don't crave social approval, but even they can be pushed too far. When that threshold is crossed, a mental switch flips. The Sigma detaches, not out of bitterness, but out of necessity. He's done explaining himself, done tolerating manipulation, done entertaining emotional chaos. Manipulation tactics, whether it's gaslighting, guilt-tripping, or passive aggressiveness, lose their power over him. Why? Because he no longer reacts. Reaction is fuel for manipulation, and he's pulled the plug. This is supported by the concept of emotional detachment in psychology, a skill often taught in therapy to help individuals maintain boundaries and reduce emotional burnout. The Sigma embodies this skill naturally. Guilt trips? Denied. He doesn't let others weaponize his empathy anymore. Instead of feeling guilty for choosing peace, he sees it as self-respect. That shift may unsettle those who once relied on his people-pleasing nature, but it's a necessary evolution. Validation-seeking becomes irrelevant. He no longer needs applause or external approval to feel worthy. According to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, self-actualization sits at the top. This is where the Sigma now operates. His sense of identity is internal, not defined by others. And perhaps the most important shift, he's now mission-driven. Everything he does is intentional. Whether it's building a business, improving himself, or simply enjoying solitude, he's laser-focused. He's not avoiding emotions, he's just prioritizing purpose. This detachment makes him powerful and a bit unsettling. People sense the change. The once agreeable Sigma is now cool, measured, and unshakable. He's no longer a safety net for others' dysfunction. He's not cruel, just clear. And clarity, that's scary for those who can't control it. So when a Sigma male is done playing nice, it's not a declaration of war, it's a quiet revolution. He didn't become heartless. He became free. Being nice is a choice, but so is walking away. And when a Sigma finally chooses to protect his peace over pleasing others, he unlocks a level of power most people never touch. So if you're a Sigma watching this, stop apologizing for evolving. Stop explaining your silence. Stop watering down your worth. Your power lies in your discipline, your detachment, and your decision to never settle. Because when you're done playing nice, you start playing real. And that's when everything changes. Sigmas, this is your reminder to own your journey. If this video spoke to your soul, go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe to join a community of thinkers, lone wolves, and leaders who don't just exist, they impact. Apply these Sigma traits to your life and watch the world adjust to your new frequency. Stay true and stay Sigma.